The weight of centuries presses against you as you stand before the monolith, a silent sentinel of the past. It has witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, yet its purpose remains an unsolved riddle. How could a people with no advanced tools create such a monument, and why did they build it? Was it a simple marker, or was there something far deeper at play? The answers lie within these massive stones, waiting to be uncovered, if only we are willing to seek them out. The air is thick with the weight of time, a silence that stretches back millennia. You stand before the giant stone, weathered by the centuries but unmoved by them. The stone is a relic, its surface worn, yet it carries an undeniable sense of presence, as though it were more than just a lifeless object. It's hard to comprehend the sheer scale of what you're looking at, not just in size but in the immensity of its history. This monolith, this sentinel, has stood the test of time, longer than any of the civilizations we know. Its purpose, its very meaning, remains a mystery to this day. This is not just any stone. It is one of countless megaliths that dot the earth, scattered across continents, from the icy north of Scandinavia to the sun-baked plains of Africa, from the remote islands of the Pacific to the heart of the American Southwest. Each one, a giant sentinel of forgotten wisdom, whose true purpose eludes us. They are not simply rocks that were left behind. They are the very markers of humanity's ancient past, physical manifestations of our ancestors' deep understanding of the world around them. These massive stones were placed with intention, their weight, size, and sheer presence speaking to something far more profound than we are often willing to admit. Standing here, gazing up at this silent sentinel, you begin to question everything you thought you knew. How could a culture, long before the advent of advanced tools or the wheel, have the foresight and the ingenuity to create such structures? What was their purpose? Were they simply monuments to the gods, created to honor deities we no longer understand? Or could these stones have been built for something far more complex, something that resonates even now, thousands of years later? What if the very stones we see today were the keys to unlocking a truth we've forgotten? A truth that could reshape everything we know about our distant ancestors, their capabilities, and their connection to the earth and sky. The mysteries of these ancient megaliths have captivated the imagination of scholars, archaeologists, and mystics for centuries. The question of why they were built, how they were constructed, and what purpose they served has driven countless investigations. Some believe they were places of worship, constructed to connect the earthly realm with the divine. Others claim they were tools for understanding the heavens, serving as astronomical observatories that allowed ancient people to track the movements of the stars and planets. Still others suggest that the stones may have had a more esoteric purpose, that they were portals, conduits for unseen forces, energy grids connecting the earth to the cosmos. But no matter how many theories are proposed, the truth remains elusive. To truly grasp the significance of these megaliths, one must consider the civilizations that built them, civilizations that existed long before recorded history, and whose lives were entwined with the rhythms of nature in ways that we can scarcely comprehend today. These ancient peoples had a deep knowledge of the earth, of the seasons, of the stars. They understood the cycles of life and death, the ebb and flow of time, and perhaps most importantly, their place within this vast, mysterious world. The construction of these monumental stones, which required not only immense physical labor but also a sophisticated understanding of geometry, astronomy, and engineering, speaks to a level of knowledge and capability that we tend to underestimate. What strikes you, standing before these giants, is the sheer scale of ambition required to build them. The stones themselves, often weighing several tons, sometimes even more, were transported from quarries far and wide. How did these ancient builders move these enormous stones, some of which were dragged across vast distances without the aid of modern machinery? How did they lift these massive blocks, carving them into perfect shapes with such precision? The tools they had at their disposal were rudimentary by today's standards, yet they were able to create some of the most awe-inspiring structures known to mankind. Take, for instance, Stonehenge, the most famous of all megalithic sites. Its massive stones, some weighing as much as 25 tons, were transported from quarries as far as 20 miles away. The alignment of these stones with the movements of the sun is so precise that it suggests a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. And this is just one example. All over the world, similar megalithic sites exist, each with its own unique characteristics, yet all share the common thread of their mysterious origins. Whether in the rolling hills of England, the deserts of Egypt, or the forests of the Pacific Northwest, these stones serve as silent sentinels, watching over the lands they have stood guard over for thousands of years. The enigma of the megaliths becomes even more fascinating when we consider the people who built them. Who were these ancient builders, and what drove them to construct such monumental structures? Many of the cultures that created these megalithic sites have left behind few written records, and what little we know about them comes from fragmentary archaeological evidence, ancient myths, and oral traditions. Yet, the very existence of these stones challenges the conventional narrative of human history. They suggest that these early peoples possessed a level of sophistication that we tend to associate with much later civilizations. Could it be that we are underestimating their capabilities? Could these ancient builders have had knowledge that has been lost to time, knowledge that we have yet to rediscover? It is easy to dismiss the idea that these megaliths were more than just symbols of ancient worship or primitive attempts at architecture. But when you stand before these stones, it becomes increasingly difficult to ignore the possibility that there is more to these structures than meets the eye. What if these megaliths were not just the creations of a bygone era but rather the remnants of a lost civilization, a civilization whose knowledge and understanding of the world were far beyond what we can even begin to comprehend? In recent years, new theories have emerged that suggest the megaliths were not just passive objects but active tools designed to harness the natural forces of the earth, channeling energy in ways we have yet to fully understand. Some researchers have proposed that these stones may have been constructed along ley lines, invisible lines of energy that some believe crisscross the earth, connecting sacred sites and places of power. Others have speculated that the stones may have been designed to align with celestial events, acting as markers for the stars, guiding the way for those who could read the heavens. What if these stones were more than just physical markers, more than just impressive feats of engineering? What if they were designed to connect humanity with the cosmos, to channel the energy of the earth and the stars, to serve as conduits for forces beyond our comprehension? Could it be that the ancient builders understood something about the natural world that we have long forgotten, a knowledge that has been lost to the sands of time? And if so, what secrets might these megaliths still be holding, waiting to be uncovered by those who are brave enough to seek them out? The more we explore the mystery of the megaliths, the more questions arise. Every new discovery, every new theory, only seems to deepen the enigma. Are these silent sentinels simply markers of a lost age, or are they something much more? What if the answers lie not in the stones themselves, but in the connections between them, in the patterns they form across the landscape, in the alignment of the stars and the cycles of the earth? Perhaps the true purpose of these megaliths is not something we can easily comprehend. Perhaps it is a secret too vast for the human mind to fully grasp, a mystery that will forever remain just out of reach. Or perhaps, in the stillness of the stones, we are hearing the echoes of a time long past, a time when humanity understood its place in the cosmos, when we were not just inhabitants of the earth but were attuned to the very forces that shape our world. As you stand there, looking up at the monolith before you, it becomes clear that the silence of these stones is not an absence of meaning, but a presence in itself. They are not just remnants of a forgotten past, but whispers of a deeper truth, a truth that is still waiting to be uncovered. The mystery of the megaliths is far from over. It is only just beginning. There is something almost otherworldly about the presence of these ancient megaliths. They stand, massive and silent, scattered across the earth in locations that seem so far removed from each other yet are inexplicably connected by their sheer existence. To stand before them is to feel the weight of history pressing down on you, a silent reminder of the mysteries that have been lost in the folds of time. But what was their purpose? Why did ancient cultures, separated by vast distances in time, construct these stone giants? And what was it that motivated such massive undertakings, creating monuments that would outlast the very civilizations that built them? If we look to the archaeological record, it becomes clear that the megaliths were not the work of any one culture or civilization. These massive stone structures can be found all over the world, from the northern reaches of Europe to the southern tip of Africa, from the coastlines of the Americas to the deserts of the Middle East. And yet, despite their widespread presence, no two megalithic sites are identical. Each one tells a different story, shaped by the cultures that constructed them, their religious beliefs, their understanding of the cosmos, and their connection to the earth itself. And yet, for all their diversity, these sites share common features. Immense stones, carefully arranged in precise formations, often aligned with celestial events, such as solstices or equinoxes. These were not arbitrary acts of construction. They were deliberate, calculated, and infused with a deep sense of purpose. Perhaps the most famous of all megalithic sites is Stonehenge, the colossal stone circle located in the rolling hills of southern England. Its iconic structure has captivated historians, archaeologists, and curious onlookers for centuries. But for all that we know about Stonehenge, its stunning alignment with the solstices, the precision of its construction, and its sheer scale, much about it remains a mystery. What was its true purpose? Was it a site for astronomical observation? A place of religious significance? Or was it a meeting point? A place where ancient peoples came together to mark the passing of the seasons, to celebrate life and death, or to connect with the divine? While many theories have been proposed, none of them have been definitively proven, leaving the purpose of Stonehenge shrouded in ambiguity. And yet, as we stand before Stonehenge, we are reminded of its immense power, not just as a structure, but as a symbol of something far greater. The stones, standing like silent sentinels, seem to be calling out to us from another time. The very act of constructing such a monument would have required a deep understanding of the natural world, a sophisticated knowledge of engineering and geometry, and an almost mystical connection to the rhythms of the earth and the cosmos. The builders of Stonehenge were not simply creating a physical structure. They were crafting a bridge between the human and the divine, between the mortal world and the eternal. But Stonehenge is only one example of the countless megalithic sites that exist around the world. From the sprawling complex of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey to the ancient stone circles of the British Isles, from the towering statues of Easter Island to the sacred sites of the American Southwest, megalithic structures have been a defining feature of ancient civilizations for thousands of years. Each of these sites offers a glimpse into the worldview of the people who built them, revealing their deep connection to the earth, the heavens, and the unseen forces that shaped their lives. What is particularly fascinating about these ancient megaliths is the way they seem to transcend the specific cultures that created them. While each culture brought its own unique understanding of the world to the construction of these sites, there are striking similarities that emerge when we compare them. These similarities suggest a shared knowledge, a shared belief system, and perhaps even a shared heritage. The alignment of megalithic structures with celestial events is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for this idea. Many megalithic sites, including Stonehenge, were built to align with the movements of the sun, moon, and stars, suggesting that the people who built them had a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. In fact, some researchers argue that these ancient peoples were not only tracking the movements of celestial bodies, but were also using these alignments to mark significant events in the agricultural calendar, such as the planting and harvesting of crops, or the changing of seasons. In places like Egypt, where massive pyramids and temples were constructed with a similar attention to astronomical alignment, we see the same patterns emerging. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, is precisely aligned with the cardinal points of the compass, and its construction incorporates intricate knowledge of mathematics and geometry. The ancient Egyptians also aligned their temples and pyramids with the rising and setting of stars, particularly those in the constellation of Orion, which was associated with the god Osiris, the god of the afterlife. This suggests that, just like the builders of Stonehenge, the ancient Egyptians saw a deep connection between the heavens and the earth, and that their megalithic structures were not just monuments to their gods, but a means of connecting with the divine forces that govern the cosmos. But it is not only in the ancient cultures of Europe, the Middle East, and Africa that we find evidence of megalithic structures. In the Americas, we also see similar patterns emerging. The ancient Native American cultures of the Southwest, for example, constructed intricate stone structures, such as the Chaco Canyon in New Mexico, that were aligned with celestial events. These sites, like their European counterparts, suggest that the indigenous peoples of the Americas had a deep understanding of astronomy and the natural world, and that they used these megalithic structures to mark the passage of time, to celebrate important events, and to connect with the divine. One of the most striking things about these megalithic structures is the sheer effort and resources that went into their construction. In many cases, the stones used to build these monuments were not only enormous, but they were also transported over great distances. The blue stones of Stonehenge, for example, were brought from quarries in Wales, some 150 miles away. The construction of these megaliths would have required enormous amounts of labor and organization, suggesting that the societies that built them were highly developed and had access to sophisticated tools and techniques. Some researchers have even speculated that the transportation and erection of these stones may have required the use of complex engineering techniques, such as ramps, pulleys, and levers, all of which would have been far ahead of their time. The question, then, becomes, what drove these ancient peoples to undertake such monumental projects? Why did they go to such great lengths to transport and carve these stones, to align them with celestial events, and to construct massive, intricate structures that would stand the test of time? What were they trying to achieve? Were they seeking to connect with the gods? Were they trying to understand the universe? Or was there something even deeper at play, something that we have yet to uncover? One possible answer lies in the idea of ritual and belief. For many ancient cultures, the act of building and constructing monumental structures was not just about creating physical objects. It was about participating in a cosmic order, about aligning oneself with the natural rhythms of the world. The construction of these megaliths may have been seen as an act of spiritual devotion, a way of bringing the divine into the physical realm. In this sense, the stones themselves may have been viewed as living entities, imbued with power and significance that transcended their physical form. In this context, the megaliths can be seen as more than just symbols of ancient engineering feats. They were sacred sites, places where people could come to commune with the divine, to perform rituals, and to connect with the forces that shaped their world. The precision with which these structures were built, the alignment of the stones with celestial events, and the effort that went into their construction all suggest that the builders saw these stones as far more than just physical objects. They were a means of connecting with something greater, something beyond the realm of human understanding. As we examine these megaliths, then, we are confronted not just with the remnants of ancient civilizations, but with a window into a world that we have long forgotten. The question of why these stones were built, and what they were meant to represent, remains as mysterious as the stones themselves. What if the answer lies not just in the stones, but in the knowledge that was passed down through the ages, in the rituals and beliefs that guided the builders, and in the connection between humanity and the cosmos that they sought to honor? The megaliths stand as silent witnesses to a time when humanity was in tune with the natural world in ways we can barely comprehend today. And perhaps, just perhaps, the answers we seek are hidden in their silence, waiting to be uncovered by those willing to look beyond the surface and into the deeper mysteries of the past. The stones that lie before you are not just remnants of a bygone age. They are more than the silent, weathered witnesses to the passage of time. They are symbols of something far deeper, an enduring enigma that beckons the curious and the brave to uncover their true story. But the question lingers. Who were the people behind these monumental works, and what drove them to invest such immense labor, skill, and vision in creating these megaliths? What kind of society could have conceptualized and executed such grand, complex projects, long before the advent of advanced tools, machinery, or the conveniences of modern civilization? When we attempt to understand the builders of these great structures, we must first strip away our modern biases and assumptions. We are so accustomed to thinking of ancient civilizations in terms of their relative advancement, based on written records, technologies, and the complexity of their governance. Yet, the builders of these megaliths may have been far more sophisticated than we are often willing to admit. They were not primitive people with crude tools, struggling to make sense of the world. They were highly intelligent, innovative, and connected to the world in a way that we, in our hyper-technological age, struggle to comprehend. Many of the cultures responsible for these monumental feats left behind little in terms of written history. The ancient people who constructed Stonehenge, the builders of Göbekli Tepe, or the creators of the massive earthworks in the Americas did not leave us with long written records or detailed accounts of their lives. What we know of them comes largely from the remnants of their physical structures, from myths passed down orally, and from archaeological findings, which often only give us glimpses into their world. Yet even with this limited information, the enormity of their achievements cannot be denied. These ancient builders did not simply erect stones. They shaped them, placed them, and aligned them with a precision that modern engineers would envy. Consider the builders of the megaliths in Egypt, for example. The ancient Egyptians are often remembered for their monumental pyramids, the most famous being the Great Pyramid of Giza. The sheer scale of the construction is enough to leave us in awe, an estimated 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing between 2 and 30 tons, stacked in perfect alignment, all without the benefit of modern cranes or machinery. To complete such a project would have required vast organization, specialized labor, and an intimate knowledge of mathematics, geometry, and astronomy. Yet the Egyptians left behind very few direct records that explain how such an extraordinary feat was achieved. What, then, did these builders know that we do not? How did they manage to accomplish what we would consider to be an impossible task with the most rudimentary tools? There is a profound mystery here that cannot be easily explained away by the assumption of primitive technology. Some researchers have suggested that these civilizations may have understood and utilized knowledge that has been lost to history. Could it be that they possessed a type of engineering knowledge that has been forgotten over time, lost due to natural disasters, warfare, or deliberate suppression? Or is it possible that these ancient cultures had access to sources of power and energy that we are only beginning to understand today? In the case of Stonehenge, the same questions arise. The massive stones that make up this iconic structure were not simply placed randomly in the ground. They were carefully transported from distant quarries, some located as far as 150 miles away, and set into position with such precision that even modern engineers marvel at the accomplishment. And this wasn't just a matter of brute force. The builders of Stonehenge understood the principles of geometry, astronomy, and perhaps even acoustics. Some researchers have posited that Stonehenge was not just an astronomical observatory, but also a kind of spiritual or ceremonial site, one designed to align with celestial events and to connect the earth with the heavens. But how did the people of ancient Britain possess such knowledge, and what led them to invest so much effort in constructing such a site? Was it a matter of religious devotion, or was there something else at play here? Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of these ancient builders is the way they seem to transcend the concept of civilization as we understand it. Today, when we think of advanced societies, we tend to think of written records, formal governments, and cities with complex infrastructures. Yet, the creators of these megaliths were not bound by the limitations of urban life. Instead, they worked in harmony with nature, with the stars, and with the earth itself. Their societies were not dominated by the same priorities that govern modern life: wealth accumulation, territorial conquest, or the pursuit of material comforts. Instead, these ancient cultures seem to have been motivated by something far deeper: a quest for knowledge, for understanding the mysteries of life, death, and the universe. Take, for example, the enigmatic site of Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. Discovered only in the 1990s, Göbekli Tepe is one of the most remarkable archaeological finds in recent history. The site consists of massive stone pillars arranged in circles, some weighing as much as 10 tons. The complexity of the site, which predates known civilizations by over 5,000 years, suggests that the people who built it were not simple hunter-gatherers, as was once assumed. Rather, they were part of a sophisticated culture with an advanced understanding of construction, symbolism, and perhaps even religious or spiritual practices. Yet the builders of Göbekli Tepe did not leave behind a single written record, and their culture disappeared long before the rise of the first cities. What was the purpose of this mysterious site, and who were the people who constructed it? Were they part of an even older civilization, one whose legacy was erased by time? The mystery of Göbekli Tepe raises a larger question about the nature of ancient societies. Could it be that our conventional understanding of civilization is incomplete? What if the builders of these megaliths were not simply primitive tribes struggling to survive but were, in fact, part of a much larger and more complex web of interconnected cultures that span the globe? Some researchers suggest that the knowledge embedded in these megalithic sites could have been passed down by a network of societies, each with its own unique contribution to the understanding of the world. These societies may have been part of a lost civilization, one that existed long before recorded history, and whose influence can still be felt in the megalithic sites they left behind. This raises another compelling possibility: the idea of lost knowledge. If these ancient builders were part of a network of interconnected societies, could it be that they were privy to a secret knowledge, passed down from generation to generation, that has since been lost to history? This knowledge could have been related to astronomy, mathematics, geometry, or even energy. Some have speculated that the megaliths themselves were not simply static objects but were designed to harness and channel energy, tapping into forces that modern science has only recently begun to understand. Could it be that the builders of these monuments had access to energy sources, whether natural or otherwise, that we have lost the ability to use? Of course, the idea of lost knowledge is an appealing but elusive concept. There are many theories, some more fantastical than others, about what this lost knowledge could have been. Some believe that the megalithic builders were part of a global network of knowledge that spanned the continents. Others suggest that they had access to a form of energy or technology that we have forgotten, perhaps due to a global catastrophe or societal collapse. Whether the knowledge they possessed was physical, metaphysical, or spiritual, it remains one of the greatest mysteries of our past. As we examine the builders of these megaliths, it becomes increasingly clear that they were not simply primitive people struggling to survive. They were sophisticated, innovative, and deeply connected to the forces that govern the earth and the heavens. They were able to achieve what we, with all our modern tools and technologies, still find difficult to replicate. And perhaps, in some way, they understood the world in a way that we have long since forgotten. The mystery of their civilization, and the knowledge they may have possessed, is one that continues to intrigue and inspire us. It beckons us to look deeper, to question what we think we know, and to consider that the true story of humanity may be far more complex and mysterious than we have ever imagined. The ancient megaliths scattered across the world are a testament to the ingenuity and ambition of our ancestors. Yet, despite centuries of study and countless theories, their true purpose remains elusive. Were these colossal stone structures merely monuments to gods and kings, or did they serve a deeper, more complex function? Could it be that these stones were not just symbolic, but tools designed for a specific, deliberate purpose that goes beyond the scope of religious or cultural expression? The idea that these megaliths served a functional, rather than purely ceremonial, purpose is a notion that has long intrigued scholars, and it is one that, as research continues, grows ever more compelling. The question is no longer simply about what these structures represent, but what they were used for. Were they astronomical observatories, tools for measuring the cycles of time, or perhaps did they function as something far more esoteric, devices for communicating with forces beyond our understanding? One of the most widely discussed functions of many megalithic sites is their alignment with celestial events. Whether it's the iconic Stonehenge in England, the pyramids of Giza in Egypt, or the temple complexes of the ancient Americas, a common theme emerges. These stones are meticulously positioned to correspond with the sun, moon, stars, and other celestial bodies. The builders of these megaliths seem to have had a deep understanding of astronomy. Stonehenge, for example, is aligned so that the rising sun on the summer solstice casts its first rays through the center of the structure, creating a powerful visual connection between the earth and the heavens. The same is true for many other megalithic sites, where alignments with solar and lunar events play a prominent role in their design. But why? Why go to such lengths to align massive stones with celestial bodies? It could be argued that the ancient builders were simply marking the changing of seasons, tracking the passage of time for agricultural purposes. After all, many early civilizations were deeply connected to the land, and understanding the rhythms of nature was essential for survival. Knowing when the summer solstice occurred, or when the first full moon after the equinox would rise, would have had practical value for farming communities. These celestial markers could help signal the time to plant or harvest crops, predict changing weather patterns, or prepare for ritualistic celebrations tied to the natural world. But to reduce these megaliths to mere tools for agriculture would be to overlook something far deeper and more mysterious. Consider the scale of the effort involved in constructing these stone circles and astronomical observatories. Moving massive stones from distant quarries, shaping them with precise measurements, and arranging them in such a way that they would align perfectly with celestial events requires an immense investment of resources and labor. And yet, these monuments were built with a level of precision that goes beyond mere functionality. The builders of Stonehenge, for example, used a sophisticated understanding of geometry to create the monument's iconic circular arrangement, and their knowledge of the solstices suggests a remarkable understanding of the sun's path across the sky. This was not just an effort to mark the seasons, it was an effort to capture and make tangible the movements of the cosmos itself. There is a sense of reverence in the way these megaliths are aligned, as if the builders sought to connect with something greater than themselves, something beyond the earthly realm. Perhaps these stones were not simply tracking the passage of time but attempting to communicate with the divine, the stars, or the unseen forces that govern the universe. This idea is supported by the fact that many megalithic sites appear to have served as places of religious or spiritual significance. Stonehenge, for example, was likely a site for rituals and ceremonies, many of which would have been tied to the solar and lunar cycles. But the connection between these structures and the divine is not limited to Europe. Across the globe, we find similar examples of megalithic sites that seem to have been constructed for ritualistic purposes. In Egypt, the pyramids are not just tombs for pharaohs. They were built to align with the stars, with particular emphasis on the constellation of Orion, which was associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. The pyramid's alignment with the heavens suggests that the ancient Egyptians believed that the soul of the pharaoh would travel to the stars after death, continuing their journey in the afterlife. Similarly, in the ancient Americas, megalithic structures such as those found at Teotihuacan in Mexico and Machu Picchu in Peru also show a deep alignment with celestial events. These sites were not only designed to honor the gods. They were designed to facilitate a spiritual connection between the earth and the heavens. Yet, despite the seemingly obvious religious and ceremonial functions of these structures, it would be short-sighted to reduce them to mere places of worship. The precision and complexity of these megaliths suggest that they served a far more profound purpose, one that transcended the boundaries of ritual. Could it be that these stones were not just markers for celestial events, but were designed to harness the very energy of the cosmos? There are those who believe that the megaliths were constructed not just to observe the heavens but to tap into the cosmic forces that govern the universe. Some researchers speculate that the stones were designed to channel energy, whether from the earth, the sun, or the stars. This theory is based on the idea that the precise alignment of the stones was not just for observational purposes but for the manipulation of energy, in much the same way that modern technology uses electromagnetic fields to transmit power. This idea of the megaliths as energy conduits is not as far-fetched as it may initially seem. Many of the megalithic sites are located in areas with unusual geological features, such as high levels of quartz or magnetic properties, which could enhance the possibility of energy being harnessed. The energy of the Earth itself, known as Earth energy, has been the subject of speculation for centuries. Some have suggested that the builders of the megaliths were aware of these natural energy fields and constructed their sites to interact with them, either for healing purposes or to harness the forces of nature for spiritual or practical use. The alignment of megaliths with celestial events could have been a way of synchronizing their energy with the natural rhythms of the cosmos, creating a harmonious flow between the earth, the stars, and the human consciousness. This theory gains further support when we examine the acoustics of certain megalithic sites. Some megalithic structures, such as Stonehenge, have been found to have unique acoustic properties that suggest they may have been used for sound-related rituals. The way the stones are arranged appears to amplify sound in certain areas, creating an echo that reverberates throughout the site. This has led some researchers to speculate that the ancient builders may have been using sound to influence the energy of the stones, perhaps in a form of ancient sonic technology that allowed them to tap into the natural forces of the earth and sky. The idea that sound, vibration, and energy could have been used in conjunction to create a powerful effect is not new. Modern science has only recently begun to explore the role of sound and frequency in shaping the physical world, but ancient peoples may have understood these principles far earlier than we previously thought. While these theories about the megaliths as energy channels or sound amplifiers are speculative, they offer a fascinating glimpse into the possibilities that these ancient sites were not merely constructed for observation or worship, but as instruments capable of influencing the natural world. Whether through celestial alignments, earth energies, or the power of sound, these stones may have served a far more profound function than we can fully comprehend. The complexity of their design and the effort required to build them suggest that the people who constructed these megaliths had a deep and sophisticated understanding of the natural world, one that went far beyond what we typically attribute to ancient societies. However, despite these theories, the question of what these megaliths were truly designed for remains unanswered. Were they observatories, temples, energy conduits, or something else entirely? Could it be that they served multiple functions, adapting to the needs of different cultures and eras? One of the most intriguing aspects of the megalithic sites is their longevity. These structures have endured for thousands of years, standing as silent witnesses to the passage of time. Some have withstood the ravages of nature, while others have been repurposed or rebuilt by later civilizations. But despite all the changes that have occurred around them, these stones remain steadfast, their original purpose still shrouded in mystery. The key to understanding the true purpose of these megaliths may lie not in any one theory, but in the synthesis of multiple ideas. Perhaps they were not just one thing, but many. They may have been places of ritual and worship, tools for astronomical observation, instruments for harnessing cosmic energy, and even symbols of a deeper spiritual connection to the earth and the heavens. Each megalithic site tells a different story, shaped by the people who built it, their beliefs, and their understanding of the world. And perhaps, in the end, the true purpose of these stones is not something we can fully comprehend. Perhaps they are meant to remind us of the mystery and wonder of the universe, of our place within it, and of the ancient wisdom that continues to resonate, hidden in the stones, waiting to be rediscovered. As we stand before these ancient sentinels, we are left with more questions than answers. But perhaps that is the point. The megaliths were not built to be easily understood. They were built to provoke thought, to inspire awe, and to connect us with something beyond ourselves. And in that sense, they have succeeded. For even now, thousands of years later, they continue to captivate our imaginations, challenging us to look beyond the surface and search for the deeper truths that lie beneath. As we attempt to unravel the mysteries surrounding the ancient megaliths, we are confronted not only by the awe-inspiring scale of these structures, but also by the enigma of their construction. How did these ancient civilizations manage to build such monumental structures, using nothing more than basic tools and rudimentary technology? How did they move massive stones, sometimes weighing several tons, across vast distances, and then lift them into place with such precision? These questions have perplexed scholars and engineers for centuries, and yet, the more we learn about the construction of these megalithic sites, the more we realize how much we still do not know. One of the most commonly proposed explanations for how these massive stones were transported is the idea that ancient builders used simple tools and methods, such as ropes, sledges, and rollers to move the stones. The process would have been slow and labor-intensive, but it is certainly possible that such methods could have been employed to move the stones over relatively short distances. However, this theory begins to break down when we consider the distances that some of these stones were transported. For example, at Stonehenge, the blue stones, which weigh up to 25 tons, were transported from a quarry in the Preseli Hills of Wales, more than 150 miles away. The task of moving stones of this size and weight across such a distance, using only basic tools, seems almost insurmountable. And yet, the builders of Stonehenge managed to achieve this feat with a level of precision that still baffles modern engineers. Some researchers have proposed that the stones were floated along rivers or waterways, using rafts or boats to carry them over long distances. This theory would explain how the stones were transported over such great distances without the need for complex land-based transport systems. However, this idea raises its own set of questions. The blue stones of Stonehenge, for example, would have had to travel over land as well as water, meaning that the builders would have needed to find a way to transport them from the riverbanks to the construction site itself. This would have required an extraordinary amount of labor and organization, further complicating the task of moving the stones. In addition to the issue of transportation, there is the question of how these ancient builders managed to lift such massive stones into place. The largest stones at Stonehenge, for example, weigh as much as 40 tons, and yet they were carefully arranged in a precise configuration. How did the builders manage to lift these stones and position them with such accuracy, using only basic tools and human labor? Modern engineers, even with the advantage of cranes and other advanced machinery, would struggle to replicate the feat, making it clear that the ancient builders possessed a level of skill and knowledge that far surpassed our expectations. One possible explanation is that the builders of these megaliths used a system of ramps, pulleys, and levers to lift the stones into position. This theory is supported by the fact that many megalithic sites, including Stonehenge, show signs of having been constructed in stages, with the stones being raised in a gradual process. The use of ramps would have allowed the builders to lift the stones incrementally, while pulleys and levers could have been used to help shift the stones into their final positions. However, this theory is not without its challenges. The construction of such ramps would have required immense amounts of labor and resources, and there is little physical evidence to suggest that ramps of the scale required for such a project were ever built. Still, the idea of ramps and levers is one of the most widely accepted explanations for how the megaliths were raised, and it remains a popular theory among archaeologists and engineers. Another intriguing theory posits that the ancient builders may have had access to knowledge of advanced engineering techniques that have been lost to history. Some have suggested that the builders of these megaliths possessed a sophisticated understanding of physics, allowing them to lift and position the stones with remarkable precision. According to this theory, the builders may have used principles of leverage, counterweights, or even unknown forms of energy to lift the stones. The idea that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge that has since been lost is not a new one. Throughout history, there have been instances where ancient technologies and techniques have been rediscovered or reinterpreted, only to reveal that past cultures were far more advanced than we had previously believed. Could it be that the builders of the megaliths were working with a lost technology that allowed them to achieve what we would consider to be impossible? This theory raises the question of whether there was a greater civilization that predates all known human history, a civilization whose advanced knowledge was passed down through oral traditions and hidden in the construction of these megalithic sites. Some proponents of this idea argue that the builders of the megaliths were part of a global network of societies that shared knowledge of advanced engineering and construction techniques. These societies may have left behind not only the megalithic structures, but also clues in the form of ancient texts, symbols, and myths that have yet to be fully understood. According to this theory, the megaliths themselves are a form of code, designed to preserve this lost knowledge for future generations. Could it be that these ancient builders were aware of their own eventual disappearance and constructed these megaliths as a way of preserving their wisdom for those who came after them? While the idea of a lost, advanced civilization may sound like something out of a science fiction novel, there are some intriguing parallels between the megalithic sites and the myths of ancient cultures. Many cultures, from the ancient Egyptians to the Sumerians to the Native American tribes, have legends of gods or giants who came from the stars, bringing with them knowledge of agriculture, engineering, and astronomy. These myths often describe beings who possessed abilities far beyond those of ordinary humans, suggesting that the knowledge they imparted may have been of an advanced nature. Could these gods have been the same people who built the megaliths? Could the megaliths themselves be a legacy of a forgotten civilization, one whose technology and knowledge were far ahead of their time? As we delve deeper into the mystery of the megaliths, we are forced to confront the limitations of our own understanding. Modern science and archaeology have made great strides in uncovering the mysteries of the past, but the true story of the megaliths remains elusive. What we do know is that these structures are not just physical objects. They are symbols of something much greater, something that transcends time and culture. The construction of the megaliths was not just a technical achievement. It was a spiritual and philosophical endeavor, one that sought to connect humanity with the cosmos, with the earth, and with the divine. The sheer scale and complexity of these structures suggest that the builders were not simply motivated by practical concerns, but by a profound desire to understand the world around them. The megaliths were not just constructed for the benefit of the people who built them. They were designed to communicate with the heavens, to tap into the forces that govern the universe, and to preserve a legacy of knowledge for future generations. These structures were meant to stand the test of time, to endure long after the civilizations that created them had faded into history. Perhaps the most profound mystery of the megaliths is not how they were built, but why they were built. What was it that motivated these ancient builders to invest such time, effort, and resources into creating these colossal structures? Was it simply a matter of religious devotion, a desire to honor the gods and connect with the divine? Or was there something deeper at play, something that transcended the boundaries of religion and culture? The answer to this question may lie in the stones themselves, which continue to stand as silent sentinels of a past we are only beginning to understand. The megaliths are not just monuments to the past. They are a reminder that there is still much we have yet to uncover about the ancient world and the civilizations that came before us. As we continue to study these remarkable structures, we may one day uncover the knowledge that the ancient builders sought to preserve. Until then, the megaliths will continue to stand, waiting for us to uncover the secrets they hold. And perhaps, in the process, we will come to understand not just how these stones were moved and raised, but why they were built in the first place, what ancient truths they were meant to preserve, and what wisdom they were meant to pass on to future generations. The vast landscape of ancient megalithic structures, scattered across the globe, presents an enduring mystery that stretches beyond just their construction and purpose. As we stand before these monuments, some towering, others in ruins, some barely visible in the natural overgrowth, the question shifts from how these stones were built to the deeper question of what they meant to the people who created them. What sacred, philosophical, or societal significance did these colossal structures carry? Were they purely physical manifestations of religious devotion, or were they symbols of something more profound, something that resonated with the very core of ancient human existence? Megalithic sites like Stonehenge, the Great Pyramids of Giza, or the massive ruins at Teotihuacan aren't simply archaeological sites. They are the bones of ancient belief systems. While the practicality of these monuments is widely debated, whether they were used for agricultural purposes, as astronomical observatories, or for communal rituals, the deeper question lies in the symbolic role these structures played in the cultures that constructed them. They were not just buildings. They were expressions of human aspirations, a reflection of the culture's understanding of the universe, death, time, and the cosmos. One of the most fascinating aspects of these megaliths is their connection to the human desire to connect with something greater than ourselves. In many ancient cultures, there was a pervasive belief that humans were not just isolated individuals, but part of a grand cosmic design. These people saw themselves as connected to the earth, the heavens, and the forces of nature. Their spiritual lives were intricately tied to the movements of celestial bodies, the changing of the seasons, and the cycles of life and death. The construction of megaliths wasn't just a physical act. It was an expression of this interconnectedness, a way to honor the gods and align with cosmic forces. Take, for instance, the astronomical alignments found in places like Stonehenge or Machu Picchu. These ancient sites were designed with remarkable precision to track the solstices, equinoxes, and other celestial events. At Stonehenge, the positioning of the stones was carefully planned to correspond with the sun's movements, allowing the builders to observe key solar events with incredible accuracy. The summer solstice, for example, was marked by the sun rising directly over the heel stone, a practice that likely held profound spiritual significance. For the people who constructed Stonehenge, this alignment with the sun was likely more than a practical observation. It was a way to connect with the divine, to mark the turning points in the cycle of life, and to bring a sense of cosmic order into their lives. Similarly, in ancient Egypt, the alignment of the pyramids with the stars, particularly the constellation of Orion, points to a belief in the afterlife and the divine journey of the soul. The Egyptians believed that the pharaohs were divine beings whose souls ascended to the stars after death, particularly to the realm of Osiris, the god of the afterlife. The placement of the pyramids, with their precise alignment to the stars, was not only a testament to the pharaoh's earthly power, but also a way to ensure that their soul would make its journey to the heavens. The Great Pyramid of Giza, with its alignment to the cardinal points, reflected this profound cosmic symbolism. It was not just a tomb. It was a gateway to the afterlife, a means of connecting the pharaoh to the divine realm. The construction of such a monument would have required not just engineering prowess but also an intimate understanding of astronomy and spiritual beliefs. In a similar vein, the ancient site of Machu Picchu in Peru, hidden high in the Andes, was constructed with a deep understanding of astronomy. The Inca people, who built this extraordinary citadel, were deeply connected to the stars and the sun. Machu Picchu's layout and architecture were designed to align with celestial events, with particular emphasis on the sun's movements. The Intihuatana stone, for instance, was a ritual stone used by the Incas as an astronomical observatory, helping them track the sun's position. The solstices and equinoxes held significant meaning for the Incas, as they marked the changing seasons and dictated the timing of their agricultural activities. But the connection to the celestial realm went beyond practical concerns. It was also a spiritual one. For the Incas, the sun was the most important deity, and their connection to it was expressed through their buildings, rituals, and their very understanding of the natural world. While these examples showcase the spiritual and astronomical significance of megalithic sites, they also highlight a more fundamental truth about the cultures that built them. These people were not simply passive observers of the world around them. They sought to actively engage with it. They did not see themselves as separate from nature or the cosmos, but as integral parts of a greater whole. The act of building these monuments was an expression of this belief, an attempt to create a lasting connection between the earth and the heavens, between humanity and the divine. This desire to connect with the cosmos also extended beyond the physical construction of these megaliths. In many cases, the rituals and ceremonies performed at these sites were central to the lives of the people who built them. For the ancient Egyptians, for example, the pyramids were not only tombs but also sites of religious rituals, where priests would conduct ceremonies to ensure the safe passage of the pharaoh's soul to the afterlife. Similarly, at Stonehenge, it is believed that the stones were used for ceremonial purposes, possibly related to the worship of the sun and moon. These rituals were not just symbolic. They were seen as essential for maintaining the balance of the natural world, for ensuring the health of the land and the prosperity of the people. In these ancient societies, the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds was not as distinct as it is today. Everything, be it a stone, a river, or the sun, was seen as imbued with spiritual significance, and the act of building these megaliths was itself a spiritual endeavor. However, the role of these structures went beyond religious and ceremonial functions. They were also expressions of cultural identity, of the ways in which these ancient peoples understood themselves in relation to their environment and to one another. The construction of megaliths often required significant social cooperation, organization, and labor. These structures were not just built by a few individuals. They were the product of entire communities working together toward a common goal. The act of building these massive stone structures was a communal effort, one that brought people together and fostered a shared sense of purpose. The megaliths, in this sense, became a symbol of collective identity, a way for ancient societies to express their unity and strength. At Stonehenge, for example, the stones were arranged in such a way that they formed a circle, an enduring symbol of unity and the cyclical nature of time. The circle itself is a motif that appears throughout megalithic architecture, from the stone circles of the British Isles to the ancient temples of Malta. The circle is a symbol of eternity, of the continuous cycles of life, death, and rebirth that govern the natural world. For the people who built these structures, the circle was not just an architectural form, it was a representation of the cyclical patterns of the cosmos and the interconnectedness of all things. Similarly, in the case of the pyramids of Egypt, the shape itself was imbued with meaning. The pyramid was not just a tomb. It was a symbol of the sacred mountain, the place where the gods resided. The pyramid's shape, its pointed top, was designed to reflect the rays of the sun, symbolizing the pharaoh's ascent to the divine realm. The very act of constructing such a monument was an expression of the belief in divine kingship, of the pharaoh's role as the intermediary between the gods and the people. The megalithic structures were also markers of power and authority. In many ancient cultures, the construction of such monumental sites was tied to the power of the ruler or the religious elite. The building of megaliths often required the mobilization of vast amounts of labor, which in turn reflected the political and social organization of the society. The rulers of ancient Egypt, for example, used the construction of pyramids as a means of asserting their power and cementing their place in the afterlife. Similarly, the construction of Stonehenge and other megalithic sites in Britain was likely tied to the social and political power of the tribal chiefs or religious leaders who oversaw the building process. Despite the fact that these megalithic sites were constructed thousands of years ago, their meaning and significance continue to resonate today. As we study these ancient structures, we are not just learning about the past, we are uncovering the ways in which our ancestors sought to understand their place in the universe. These monuments remind us that, despite the advances of modern technology and the complexities of contemporary life, the fundamental questions of existence, the questions of life, death, and the cosmos, remain as relevant as ever. The megaliths are a reminder that, at the heart of human experience, there is a deep, enduring desire to connect with something greater than ourselves, to understand the mysteries of the universe, and to leave behind a legacy that will endure long after we are gone. In the end, the significance of these megalithic structures is not found in the stones themselves, but in what they represent, their connection to the divine, to the earth, and to the cycles of life and death that govern our existence. Whether they were built as places of worship, astronomical observatories, or symbols of cultural identity, the megaliths serve as a powerful reminder of the ways in which ancient societies sought to understand the world and their place within it. And perhaps, in the process, they offer us a glimpse into the timeless human quest for meaning, connection, and transcendence. As we continue to explore the enigmatic world of ancient megalithic structures, it becomes clear that there is a profound connection between these ancient monuments and the human need to transcend the limitations of earthly existence. These stones were not mere constructions of stone. They were imbued with deep spiritual and philosophical meaning. They were designed to bridge the gap between the human and the divine, between the material world and the mysteries of the cosmos. The very act of building these colossal structures, through immense effort, skill, and resources, speaks to a belief that went beyond the practical needs of a community. It suggests that the ancient builders were striving for something greater, something beyond their immediate physical reality. In many ways, these megaliths can be seen as attempts to answer the most fundamental questions of existence. Where do we come from? What is our place in the universe? And what happens to us when we die? At the core of many megalithic sites is a deep engagement with the natural world, particularly with celestial bodies. The alignment of these structures with the movements of the sun, moon, and stars reveals that ancient peoples were not merely concerned with the cyclical nature of time for agricultural or practical reasons. They were also concerned with the metaphysical. They sought to align themselves with forces that transcended the physical world, forces that governed the universe in ways that were beyond human comprehension. The positioning of the stones at sites like Stonehenge, with its precise alignment to the summer solstice sunrise, or the pyramids of Giza, with their connections to the constellation of Orion, speaks to a desire to place humanity in harmony with the cosmos. These ancient cultures believed that by aligning their structures with celestial bodies, they could tap into the power and wisdom of the universe itself. This desire for alignment with cosmic forces was not limited to the physical design of the megaliths. In many cultures, the act of construction itself was imbued with spiritual significance. For the ancient Egyptians, the building of the pyramids was not merely a task of engineering. It was a sacred act, performed in service of the gods. The precision with which the pyramids were built, aligned to the cardinal points with near-perfect measurements, was seen as a way of ensuring that the soul of the pharaoh would successfully journey to the afterlife. The pyramid, with its sharp, pointed shape, symbolized the rays of the sun, and it was believed that this design would allow the pharaoh's soul to ascend directly to the gods. The construction process was a reflection of the ancient Egyptians' belief in the afterlife and their desire to maintain a cosmic order that extended beyond the physical realm. Similarly, at Stonehenge, the stones themselves were not just physical markers of time and space. They were also spiritual symbols. The builders of Stonehenge, likely a group of prehistoric people living in what is now modern-day England, were deeply attuned to the natural world. They constructed the monument to align with solar and lunar events, but the site's spiritual significance extended far beyond these celestial markers. The ancient peoples who built Stonehenge likely saw the stones themselves as conduits of spiritual energy, connecting the earth to the heavens. The act of standing within the stone circle during the solstices, as the sun rose over the heel stone, would have been a powerful ritualistic experience. It was not just an observation of celestial events. It was a way of participating in the grand cosmic cycle, of connecting with the eternal forces of the universe. In this way, Stonehenge was not merely a physical structure. It was a living, breathing space where human beings could engage with the divine. The very construction of such monumental structures reveals something deeply human about the builders. These people were not simply constructing buildings for practical reasons. They were constructing a relationship with the cosmos, a relationship that extended beyond the immediate needs of daily life. The creation of these megalithic sites was an act of devotion, a form of communication with the divine. And it was not only through the physical act of building that the connection to the divine was made. It was also through the rituals and ceremonies that took place at these sites. These megaliths were not passive monuments. They were active sites of spiritual engagement. Whether it was the ceremonies that likely took place at Stonehenge, or the ritualistic offerings made to the gods at the pyramids, these sites were designed to be places where the human and divine realms intersected. The human desire to connect with the divine through the construction of megaliths also speaks to a deeper philosophical question. What is the role of human agency in the cosmic order? These ancient builders were not passive participants in the natural world. They were active agents, working to shape their environment in ways that would align it with the larger cosmic forces. They believed that by constructing these megaliths, they could not only observe the heavens but also influence them. The very act of building these monumental structures was an attempt to impose order on the universe, to create a connection between the human world and the divine. In this way, these megaliths were not simply passive structures, they were active participants in the cosmic drama. In many ways, the megaliths can be seen as an early form of cosmic architecture, designed to align the material world with the divine. But this is not to say that these structures were merely symbolic. They were also functional. Many megalithic sites, such as Stonehenge and the pyramids, were used for astronomical observation and timekeeping. The alignment of the stones with celestial events allowed the ancient builders to track the movements of the sun, moon, and stars with incredible precision. This knowledge was crucial for agricultural societies, where the timing of planting and harvest was closely tied to the cycles of the moon and the sun. But the functionality of these structures went beyond practical concerns. It was also a way to connect with the divine, to create a sacred rhythm between the earth and the cosmos. The act of observing the heavens and recording the movements of celestial bodies was not only a practical tool for survival. It was also a spiritual act. By marking the passage of time through the alignment of megaliths, the ancient builders sought to synchronize their lives with the rhythms of the cosmos. This desire to align the human world with the cosmic order speaks to a fundamental belief in the interconnectedness of all things. These ancient societies did not see themselves as isolated from the natural world. They saw themselves as part of a larger, cosmic whole. The megaliths were a way of visually manifesting this belief, of creating physical spaces where humans could engage with the universe on a deeper level. While much of the research into megalithic sites has focused on their astronomical and spiritual significance, it is important to remember that these structures also served as powerful symbols of cultural identity. In many cases, the construction of these megaliths was not just an individual or religious act, it was a communal one. The building of sites like Stonehenge or the pyramids required the labor and cooperation of many people, and in this sense, the megaliths were symbols of collective identity. They represented the unity of a people working together to create something greater than themselves, something that would endure for generations to come. These monuments were not just physical landmarks. They were markers of a shared cultural vision, a way for ancient peoples to assert their identity and their connection to the divine. The construction of megalithic structures was a communal effort that required vast resources, skilled labor, and time. The stones were not just moved and placed. They were carefully shaped, aligned, and positioned to create a structure that would stand the test of time. The effort involved in constructing these sites was not just a testament to the technical capabilities of the builders. It was also a reflection of the spiritual dedication of the society that created them. The megaliths were a way of expressing the values of the culture, values that transcended the material world and sought to connect with the divine. As we continue to study these ancient structures, we are left with a deeper understanding of the human desire to connect with the cosmos. The megaliths were not simply physical objects. They were spiritual portals, gateways to a deeper understanding of the universe. The builders of these structures were not just trying to make sense of the world, they were trying to align themselves with the forces that governed it. The megaliths were expressions of a cosmic order, a way for humans to engage with the mysteries of life and death, time and eternity. These ancient monuments continue to stand as silent witnesses to the profound spiritual and philosophical questions that have shaped human existence for millennia. Through them, we are reminded that the quest for meaning and connection with the cosmos is not a modern pursuit. It is a fundamental part of the human experience. As we delve further into the mysterious role of ancient megalithic structures, it becomes increasingly clear that these monuments were not merely functional, but deeply embedded in the spiritual and cultural fabric of the societies that built them. They were, in many respects, designed to serve as powerful tools in the pursuit of understanding the cosmos, the natural world, and the very nature of human existence. The sheer scale of these structures, the meticulous planning involved in their construction, and the complexity of their alignments suggest that the builders possessed not only advanced engineering skills, but also an intimate understanding of the rhythms of the natural world. Yet, the question remains, what drove these ancient civilizations to invest so much effort, time, and resources into the construction of these monumental structures? What drove them to align themselves so precisely with celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, the stars? At the heart of many of these megalithic sites is the undeniable connection between the builders and the cosmos. The idea that the cosmos, with its vast and seemingly unknowable mysteries, played a central role in the lives of these ancient peoples is a thread that runs through much of the study of megalithic architecture. These structures were not simply built as markers for celestial events like solstices or equinoxes. They were constructed as a way for human beings to engage directly with the universe. The builders of these megaliths were not content to observe the stars from a distance. They sought to bring the stars, the sun, and the moon down to earth, grounding these celestial forces in the material world. By doing so, they hoped to harness the cosmic energy that flowed through the universe, to bring balance, order, and meaning to their own lives. Take Stonehenge, for example. This iconic megalithic structure is widely believed to have been used as an astronomical observatory, carefully aligned with the movements of the sun, particularly during the summer and winter solstices. The structure's precision, particularly in its alignment with the solstices, suggests that the people who constructed it had a deep understanding of the celestial movements. But Stonehenge, like many other megalithic sites, was more than just a place to observe celestial events. It was a place where these events were actively engaged with. The solstices were not merely moments in time to be noted. They were events to be celebrated, honored, and ritualized. The alignment of Stonehenge with the rising and setting of the sun allowed the ancient builders to create a living connection between the earth and the heavens, a connection that was both physical and spiritual. The role of the sun in these megalithic structures cannot be overstated. The sun was seen as the life-giver, the source of light and warmth, and the very embodiment of the divine. In many ancient cultures, the sun was not just a celestial body. It was a god or a powerful force that governed life on earth. The Egyptians, for example, worshipped Ra, the sun god, and built their temples and pyramids with precise alignments to the sun. The Great Pyramid of Giza, with its perfect alignment to the cardinal points, was not only a symbol of the pharaoh's divine rule, but also a conduit for the sun's power. The Egyptians believed that the pharaoh's soul would ascend to the heavens, joining the sun god Ra in the afterlife. In this sense, the pyramid was not just a tomb. It was a spiritual vessel, carrying the pharaoh's soul to the divine realm. Similarly, in the ancient cultures of the Americas, the sun played a central role in the construction of megalithic structures. The Mayans, for example, built elaborate observatories to track the movements of the sun and other celestial bodies. At the ancient city of Teotihuacan in Mexico, the pyramid of the sun is aligned with the sun's movement, marking the solstices and equinoxes. The people of Teotihuacan, like the Egyptians and the builders of Stonehenge, saw the sun as a divine force that connected the earth to the heavens. The alignment of their pyramids with the sun was not just an astronomical observation. It was a way of honoring the sun, of acknowledging its role in the cycle of life and death, and of maintaining harmony between the earth and the cosmos. The spiritual significance of the sun in these megalithic structures goes beyond just the sun itself. It speaks to the broader human desire to understand the natural world, to connect with the forces that govern it, and to impose order on the chaos of existence. The sun, as a symbol of divine power, was seen as a way to bring balance to the world. The act of aligning these structures with the sun was not just about tracking time or marking seasonal changes. It was a way of aligning the human world with the divine, of creating a sacred space where the earth could be in harmony with the heavens. But the sun was not the only celestial body to be honored in these megalithic structures. The moon, too, played a central role in the spiritual and cultural life of ancient peoples. In many cultures, the moon was seen as a counterpart to the sun, a symbol of the feminine, the mysterious, and the cyclical nature of time. The moon's phases, from the new moon to the full moon, were markers of time, signaling the passage of months and seasons. The connection between the moon and the tides, as well as its influence on fertility and agriculture, made it an important symbol for many ancient societies. The builders of megalithic sites were keenly aware of the moon cycles, and many megalithic structures were constructed to align with the phases of the moon. In ancient Britain, for example, the monument of Newgrange in Ireland is aligned with the winter solstice sunrise, but it is also deeply tied to the lunar cycle. The entrance passage of Newgrange is aligned so that, during the winter solstice, the rising sun shines directly into the chamber, illuminating the intricate carvings inside. This alignment speaks not only to the solar significance of the structure but also to the relationship between the sun and the moon. The chamber at Newgrange, like many other megalithic sites, was designed to honor both celestial bodies and their interconnectedness. The builders of Newgrange understood that the sun and the moon were not separate entities but part of a greater cosmic dance, one that governed the rhythms of life on Earth. In other cultures, the alignment of megalithic structures with lunar events, such as eclipses or full moons, was seen as a way of marking the passage of time and the changing of seasons. These structures were designed to capture the mystical power of the moon, to bring its energy into the physical realm. The cycles of the moon were seen as a reflection of the cycles of life, death, and rebirth, and by aligning their megaliths with the moon's movements, ancient builders sought to synchronize their lives with the eternal cycles of the cosmos. However, the influence of the stars was not to be overlooked. In many ancient cultures, the stars were seen as the homes of gods, ancestors, and spirits. They were the eternal witnesses to the lives of humans, marking the passage of time, and often providing guidance to those who knew how to read their patterns. The Egyptians, for example, aligned their pyramids with the stars of the constellation Orion, which was associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. The stars were not only used for navigation but were believed to be the means by which souls ascended to the afterlife. The alignment of the pyramids with Orion's belt was, in essence, a way of connecting the pharaoh with the divine, ensuring that his soul would be welcomed into the realm of the gods upon his death. In the Americas, the stars played a similarly significant role. The Mayans, in particular, constructed elaborate observatories to track the movements of the stars and the planets. The city of Teotihuacan, with its pyramid of the moon and pyramid of the sun, was also deeply connected to the stars. The ancient city of Chichen Itza, with its famous El Castillo pyramid, is also aligned with the stars, particularly with the planet Venus, which was seen as a harbinger of both death and rebirth. For the Mayans, the stars were not just distant lights in the sky. They were a direct link to the gods, guiding and influencing the lives of the people on Earth. This deep connection between the Earth and the cosmos, as reflected in the design of these megalithic structures, speaks to a fundamental human desire to understand our place in the universe. These ancient peoples were not passive observers of the cosmos. They were active participants, shaping their lives in direct relationship with the stars the sun, the moon, and the cycles of nature. The megalithic structures they left behind are a testament to this deep and enduring connection, a connection that transcends time and place and continues to captivate us today. In many ways, the megaliths are not just markers of past civilizations. They are windows into the human soul, into the eternal quest for meaning, purpose, and connection. The stones, standing tall in the landscape, are reminders that our ancestors sought to connect with something greater than themselves. And perhaps, in the process, they achieved something that continues to resonate with us today. The understanding that we are all part of something much larger than ourselves, and that the cosmos, vast, mysterious, and eternal, holds the answers to the questions we have been asking since the beginning of time. As we continue our journey through the mysteries of the ancient world and the legacy of megalithic structures, one aspect that emerges with increasing clarity is the profound connection between these monumental creations and the spiritual, philosophical, and even political spheres of ancient societies. The more we learn about these sites, the more we begin to appreciate the way in which these structures transcended mere functionality, becoming symbols of power, identity, and cosmic alignment. The question we must ask, then, is not just how these structures were built or what they were used for, but what they meant to the people who constructed them and the societies they served. What drove these ancient peoples to dedicate so much time, labor, and resources to create these enormous stone monuments? Were they purely tools for religious observance and astronomical observation, or did they also serve as reflections of the power and ambition of the ruling elite? In societies like ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Americas, the construction of monumental structures like pyramids, ziggurats, and colossal stone temples was often tied to the political and religious authority of the rulers. These structures were not simply built to honor the gods. They were constructed to project the power of the rulers themselves, to establish their divine right to rule and to solidify their place within the larger cosmic order. The ancient Egyptians, for instance, believed that their pharaohs were gods on earth, and the construction of the pyramids was a way to assert this divine status. The pyramids were not just tombs. They were massive symbols of the pharaoh's power, his connection to the divine, and his eternal role in the cosmos. The very construction of the pyramids required immense resources, both human and material, and the effort to build these structures was a reflection of the political and social hierarchy of ancient Egypt. The labor force that built the pyramids was made up of skilled workers and laborers who were often organized into teams and managed by overseers. These workers were not slaves, as is often depicted in popular media, but rather a mixture of skilled craftsmen and seasonal laborers who were employed in a sort of corvée labor system. This system of labor was used by the pharaohs to ensure that their monumental projects were completed, even during times of famine or economic hardship. The construction of the pyramids was a highly organized and controlled effort, with workers coming from all over Egypt to participate in the construction. It was an undertaking that required not only vast amounts of labor but also significant resources, including food, water, and tools, which were all provided by the state. The construction of the pyramids was also a reflection of the religious beliefs that permeated every aspect of Egyptian society. The ancient Egyptians believed that the pharaohs were not only the rulers of Egypt, but also the earthly representatives of the gods. The pyramids, particularly the Great Pyramid of Giza, were designed to serve as tombs for the pharaohs, but they also had a much larger purpose. They were intended to facilitate the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife and to ensure that he would be reborn as a divine being, joining the gods in the heavens. The pyramids were not just physical structures. They were spiritual vessels, meant to carry the pharaoh's soul into the afterlife. The pyramid's shape itself, its sharp, pointed peak, was symbolic of the sun's rays, representing the pharaoh's ascent to the divine realm. The construction of these massive structures was not just an act of engineering but a deeply spiritual endeavor, meant to connect the ruler with the divine forces of the universe. Similarly, in ancient Mesopotamia, the construction of ziggurats was a way for the ruling elite to demonstrate their divine authority and to solidify their power within the cosmic order. The ziggurats were enormous step pyramids, often dedicated to the gods, and they served as temples for worship and offerings. The construction of these ziggurats was a way for the kings of Mesopotamia to show their devotion to the gods while also asserting their power. The ziggurats were not just religious structures. They were also symbols of the king's connection to the divine. In many ways, the ziggurats were expressions of political power. They were built to project the ruler's authority and to legitimize his rule, showing that he had the support of the gods. The construction of these monumental temples was a clear signal to the people that the king was chosen by the gods, and that his authority came not just from his military prowess or political acumen, but from divine favor. In the Americas, the construction of massive pyramids and temples also reflected the political and religious aspirations of the ruling elite. The ancient Mayans, for instance, built massive step pyramids, many of which were aligned with the movements of the sun and stars. These structures were not only designed for religious ceremonies but were also symbolic of the power and divine status of the rulers. The construction of these pyramids required not only significant labor but also a vast amount of resources, including food, water, and building materials. The rulers of these ancient civilizations used the construction of these massive structures to assert their dominance, to demonstrate their ability to organize large-scale projects, and to show their divine connection to the gods. The Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan is another example of this phenomenon. Teotihuacan, located in present-day Mexico, was one of the most important cities in Mesoamerica. The Pyramid of the Sun, one of the largest pyramids in the world, was built in the heart of the city as a center of religious and political power. The construction of this massive structure would have required the mobilization of thousands of workers and a tremendous amount of resources. The pyramid was not just a religious site. It was also a symbol of the power of the rulers of Teotihuacan. The alignment of the pyramid with the sun and the stars was a way of connecting the rulers to the cosmic forces, reinforcing their divine authority. The pyramid was designed to project the power of the rulers to the people, to show that they were not just earthly leaders but divine representatives, chosen by the gods to lead the people. In all of these cultures, the construction of megalithic structures was not simply a matter of religious devotion or architectural ingenuity. It was also a matter of political power and cultural identity. These monuments were not just physical structures. They were symbols of the ruler's authority, their divine connection, and their ability to mobilize vast amounts of labor and resources. The very act of building these enormous structures was a reflection of the political, religious, and cultural values of the societies that created them. The rulers used these monuments to demonstrate their power, to legitimize their rule, and to connect themselves to the gods. The monuments served as a way to reinforce the social hierarchy, to remind the people of the ruler's divine right to rule, and to demonstrate the ruler's ability to shape the world around him. But the power of these megalithic structures extended beyond the rulers and the elites. These monuments were not just symbols of political and religious authority. They were also deeply embedded in the lives of the people. In many cases, the construction of these monumental structures involved the labor of entire communities, with people coming together to build these enormous stone monuments. The process of building these megaliths created a sense of shared purpose and collective identity. The people who worked on these projects were not just laborers. They were participants in something larger than themselves. The construction of these megalithic structures was an act of social cohesion, a way of uniting people from different walks of life in a common cause. The very process of building these monumental structures helped to solidify a sense of community and shared identity, and in many cases, these structures became the focal point of religious, political, and social life. In the case of the Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, the massive labor force that constructed the pyramid was composed of skilled workers, craftsmen, and laborers from across Egypt. These workers were organized into teams, each of which was responsible for a specific aspect of the construction process. The workers were provided with food, water, and shelter by the state, and their labor was seen as a form of tribute to the gods. The construction of the pyramid was a highly organized and communal effort, with workers coming together to create something larger than themselves. This sense of collective purpose and shared identity was a powerful force, and it helped to reinforce the social and political hierarchy of ancient Egypt. The same can be said of the ziggurats in Mesopotamia. The construction of these massive structures was a communal effort, with workers coming together to build these monumental temples to the gods. The process of building the ziggurats involved the labor of thousands of people, from craftsmen to laborers, all working together to create a symbol of the king's divine authority. The ziggurats were not just places of worship. They were also places of social and political significance, serving as focal points for the community. The construction of these megalithic structures helped to create a sense of unity and shared identity among the people, and it reinforced the king's role as the central figure in the social, political, and religious life of the society. As we examine the political and cultural significance of megalithic structures, it becomes clear that these monuments were more than just physical structures. They were expressions of power, identity, and belief. The construction of these monumental sites was a way for rulers to assert their authority, to legitimize their rule, and to create a lasting symbol of their divine connection. But they were also a way of bringing people together, of creating a sense of shared purpose and collective identity. The megaliths were more than just symbols of political power. They were the heart of ancient civilizations, the focal points around which communities were built and religious beliefs were expressed. Through these monumental structures, the ancient peoples who built them left behind a legacy that continues as we look deeper into the mysteries of megalithic structures. We begin to understand that these ancient wonders were not just grand feats of engineering or symbolic markers of time and celestial movements. They were, in many ways, the tangible manifestation of the beliefs, philosophies, and cosmic views held by the people who built them. The stone circles, pyramids, and temples were more than just physical spaces. They were sacred sites designed to connect the human world with the divine, to align the earthly realm with the cosmic order. Their construction was not just an act of labor, but a profound spiritual undertaking that reflected the worldview of entire cultures. To truly understand the significance of these sites, we must delve into the core philosophies and cosmologies that drove their creation and consider how these ancient peoples saw their place in the universe. The ancient builders of megalithic structures believed that the universe was a living, interconnected system, with every element, earth, sky, and human beings, playing a vital role in maintaining cosmic harmony. This belief was rooted in the idea that everything in the natural world was imbued with spiritual significance, and that the movement of the stars, the cycles of the moon, and the rising and setting of the sun were not just events to be observed, but forces to be engaged with. The construction of megaliths was a way to tap into this cosmic energy, to align human lives with the celestial rhythms. These ancient structures were not merely passive symbols. They were active participants in the cosmic drama, designed to channel divine power and facilitate human connection with the gods. For the builders of Stonehenge, the alignment of the stones with the movements of the sun was not just a practical consideration for tracking the seasons. It was a spiritual act. The alignment with the solstices and equinoxes suggests that the people who built Stonehenge were keenly aware of the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. The changing of the seasons, marked by the solstices, was seen as a reflection of the cycles of existence itself. The winter solstice, for example, represented a time of darkness and death, but also the promise of renewal as the sun began its journey back to the sky. The summer solstice, in contrast, was a celebration of light, life, and growth. The builders of Stonehenge understood these cycles and sought to align their monument with these celestial events, not just for practical reasons, but as a means of participating in the cosmic cycle of life. The spiritual significance of the sun was not unique to Stonehenge. It can be found in many ancient cultures that constructed megalithic structures. In Egypt, the sun was worshipped as a divine force, with the pharaohs seen as earthly representatives of the sun god Ra. The construction of the pyramids was not just an engineering feat. It was an act of devotion to the sun and the divine order it represented. The pyramids were built with precise alignments to the cardinal points and the solstices, ensuring that the pharaoh's soul would journey to the heavens, where it would join the sun god in eternal life. The pyramid, with its sharp, pointed peak, symbolized the rays of the sun, a direct link between the earthly realm and the divine. The builders of the pyramids did not see their work as simply constructing a tomb. They saw it as a spiritual act that would ensure the pharaoh's immortality and his eternal connection to the gods. Similarly, the ancient Mayans believed that the sun was the source of all life, and they constructed their megalithic structures to honor this divine force. The Mayan pyramids, such as those at Chichen Itza, were carefully aligned with the movements of the sun and the stars. The pyramid at El Castillo, for instance, is aligned with the equinoxes, and during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the play of light and shadow on the pyramid creates the illusion of a serpent slithering down the steps, symbolizing the descent of the feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl. This alignment was not just a matter of aesthetics. It was a way for the Mayans to connect with the cosmic forces, to celebrate the sun's role in the cycle of life and death, and to honor the gods who controlled these forces. In all of these cultures, the sun was seen as a divine force that governed not just the physical world but also the spiritual realm. The alignment of megalithic structures with the sun was a way of acknowledging this cosmic power, of placing human beings in harmony with the celestial rhythms. The sun was not just a source of light and warmth. It was a symbol of life itself, a reminder that the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth was an eternal process, and that by aligning with the sun, one could partake in this divine order. While the sun was a central focus in many megalithic sites, the moon also played an important role in the belief systems of ancient cultures. The moon, with its shifting phases and its connection to the tides, was seen as a symbol of the cyclical nature of time. Unlike the sun, which represented life and growth, the moon was associated with death, renewal, and the mysteries of the night. The phases of the moon marked the passage of time in a more subtle way, representing the rhythms of birth, death, and rebirth. The builders of megalithic structures understood these cycles and sought to align their monuments with the movements of the moon, as well as the sun. In Ireland, the ancient burial tomb of Newgrange provides a striking example of the moon's role in megalithic architecture. The entrance passage of Newgrange is aligned with the winter solstice sunrise, but it is also aligned with the lunar cycles. During the winter solstice, the rising sun illuminates the passage and the chamber inside, but the tomb's alignment with the moon suggests that it was also intended to serve as a marker for the lunar cycles. The builders of Newgrange, like the builders of Stonehenge and the pyramids, understood the power of celestial alignment, and their monuments were designed to connect the earthly realm with the divine forces of both the sun and the moon. The moon's connection to the cycles of life and death also played a key role in the religious practices of many ancient cultures. In ancient Egypt, the moon was associated with the god Thoth, who was believed to govern the cycles of time and the fate of the dead. The moon was seen as a guide for the soul's journey through the afterlife, and the alignment of certain megalithic structures with the moon was intended to facilitate this journey. In the Americas, the moon was also seen as a powerful symbol of death and rebirth, with the Mayans using their pyramids and observatories to track the movements of the moon and its phases. The alignment of these structures with the moon was not just a way to mark time. It was a way to honor the moon's role in the spiritual realm, to connect with the cyclical nature of life and death, and to ensure that the forces of renewal were always present. In addition to the sun and the moon, the stars also played an important role in the cosmology of ancient peoples. The stars, with their eternal presence in the night sky, were seen as a symbol of divine permanence and cosmic order. In many cultures, the stars were believed to be the homes of the gods or the ancestors of the people, and the alignment of megalithic structures with specific stars or constellations was a way to honor these celestial beings and to connect the earthly realm with the divine. The ancient Egyptians, for example, aligned the pyramids with the stars of the constellation Orion, which was associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. By aligning their tombs with Orion, the ancient Egyptians believed that the pharaoh's soul would ascend to the heavens and join the gods in the afterlife. The Mayans, too, had a deep connection to the stars. They constructed elaborate observatories, such as those at Uxacton and Copan, to track the movements of the stars and planets. The Mayans had a complex understanding of the night sky and used this knowledge to guide their agricultural practices, as well as to mark important religious and political events. The alignment of their pyramids with specific stars and constellations was a way to ensure that their rulers were in sync with the cosmic order, that their rule was legitimized by the stars, and that they were able to tap into the power of the celestial realm. The act of aligning megalithic structures with the stars, the sun, and the moon was not just a matter of observing the heavens from a distance. It was an active engagement with the cosmos, a way for ancient peoples to participate in the larger rhythms of the universe. These structures were not just built to mark the passage of time. They were built to connect the earthly realm with the divine, to synchronize human existence with the cycles of the cosmos. The builders of these monuments did not simply view themselves as isolated beings on the earth. They saw themselves as part of a much larger, interconnected system, and the megaliths they constructed were a physical manifestation of this cosmic understanding. In the end, the construction of these megalithic structures was not just about creating impressive monuments. It was about understanding and engaging with the mysteries of the universe. These structures were not passive. They were active participants in the cosmic drama, designed to channel the energies of the sun, the moon, and the stars, and to connect the human world with the divine. They were a testament to the ancient belief that human life and the cosmos were deeply intertwined, that by aligning themselves with the forces of nature, they could achieve a deeper understanding of the mysteries of existence. The megaliths left behind by these ancient builders continue to stand as a powerful reminder of the human desire to connect with the divine, to understand the universe. As we continue our exploration into the enigmatic world of ancient megalithic structures, it becomes evident that these monumental creations were not simply acts of architectural prowess or religious devotion. They were, in many ways, reflections of the deep-seated beliefs, cosmological understandings, and societal values of the cultures that created them. These structures, whether they are the towering pyramids of Egypt, the stone circles of Britain, or the great ziggurats of Mesopotamia, represent more than just the material accomplishments of ancient civilizations. They embody a worldview, a spiritual framework that placed humanity in direct relationship with the cosmos. The people who constructed these megaliths were not just building physical spaces. They were creating sacred portals through which they could access the divine, align themselves with cosmic rhythms, and attempt to control the forces of nature and life itself. One of the key aspects of these megalithic structures is their extraordinary alignment with celestial events. Whether it is the rising and setting of the sun, the movements of the moon, or the positions of specific stars, the builders of these ancient monuments seem to possess an uncanny understanding of the heavens. But this was not a passive observation of celestial bodies. It was an active engagement, a desire to harness the power of the cosmos in order to shape their lives, their societies, and their destinies. These ancient peoples believed that by aligning their monuments with the movements of celestial bodies, they could tap into divine forces, ensuring harmony, fertility, and protection for their communities. In the case of Stonehenge, for example, its builders meticulously positioned the standing stones to align with the sun's path, particularly during the summer and winter solstices. The most famous and awe-inspiring of these alignments occurs during the winter solstice, when the sun rises over the horizon and casts its first rays through the central avenue of stones, illuminating the interior of the monument. This alignment was not merely an astronomical observation, but an event laden with profound spiritual meaning. The winter solstice marked the return of the sun, a moment of rebirth and renewal, when the darkness of winter gave way to the promise of light and growth. The people who built Stonehenge saw this event as a powerful, transformative moment in the natural cycle, a time when the forces of nature were at their most dynamic and the earth itself seemed to come alive. By aligning their monument with the solstice sunrise, they hoped to harness the energy of this moment, to invoke the sun's power, and to ensure a successful and prosperous year ahead. The sun, with its life-giving warmth and light, was revered as a symbol of creation, regeneration, and divine power in many ancient cultures. In Egypt, for instance, the sun god Ra was one of the most important deities in the pantheon. The pharaohs, as earthly representatives of Ra, were considered divine beings whose power was directly linked to the sun. The pyramids of Egypt were not simply tombs for the pharaohs. They were cosmic structures, designed to align with the sun's movements and to facilitate the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife. The Great Pyramid of Giza, with its precise alignment to the cardinal directions, was designed not only as a monumental tomb, but also as a symbolic vessel to carry the pharaoh's soul to the sun god's realm. The pyramids, particularly the Great Pyramid, were meant to serve as a bridge between the earthly realm and the divine, ensuring that the pharaoh would be reborn as a star in the heavens, joining the sun god in eternal life. This idea of the pyramid as a cosmic vessel, designed to facilitate the passage of the soul, is reflected in the alignment of many other megalithic structures around the world. The ziggurats of Mesopotamia, for example, were designed to serve as temples for the gods, but they were also built to connect the earthly realm with the celestial. These towering step pyramids, such as the ziggurat of Ur, were constructed with precise alignments to the stars and planets, reflecting the belief that the heavens were the domain of the gods, and that the ziggurat served as a conduit for divine communication. The highest point of the ziggurat was considered to be the most sacred space, where the gods could descend to earth and where the king, as a divine representative, could communicate with them. The ziggurats were designed to facilitate this divine connection, and their alignment with the heavens was a reflection of the belief that the gods controlled the forces of the natural world, and by aligning with them, humans could gain power and favor. Similarly, in the Americas, the Mayans constructed their pyramids and temples with astronomical alignments that reflected their deep understanding of the celestial bodies. The pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza, for example, is aligned with the equinoxes, and during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the setting sun casts a shadow on the pyramid that resembles the body of a serpent, representing the descent of the feathered serpent god Kukulkan. This alignment was not just an act of astronomical observation. It was an invocation of divine power, a way to honor the gods and to ensure the fertility and prosperity of the land. The Mayans believed that the movement of the celestial bodies was a reflection of the gods' will, and by aligning their structures with these movements, they could bring divine favor upon their communities. This deep connection between the celestial and the earthly realms is not unique to these cultures. Across the world, ancient peoples constructed megalithic monuments that were carefully aligned with the movements of the sun, the moon, and the stars. Whether it was the temple complex of Angkor Wat in Cambodia, the observatories of the ancient Egyptians, or the stone circles of Europe, these structures were built with a profound understanding of the cosmos and a desire to align human life with the natural rhythms of the universe. The people who built these monuments saw the cosmos as a living, interconnected system, and they believed that by aligning their structures with celestial events, they could tap into the forces that govern the universe and bring about harmony, prosperity, and divine favor. At the heart of this cosmological understanding was the belief that the universe was governed by cycles, cyclical patterns of birth, death, and rebirth, of light and dark, of creation and destruction. These cycles were reflected in the movements of the celestial bodies, and by aligning their structures with these cycles, ancient peoples sought to align themselves with the natural order of the universe. The construction of megalithic structures was not just a matter of practical concern. It was an act of spiritual engagement, a way of participating in the great cosmic dance that governed the lives of all beings. But it wasn't just the sun, the moon, and the stars that these ancient builders sought to align with. The very earth beneath their feet was also seen as a source of power, and many megalithic sites were designed to reflect the relationship between the human world and the natural world. The earth was seen as a living entity, its energy flowing through the land in invisible currents. These energies were thought to be harnessed by the placement and alignment of stones, and megalithic structures were often positioned in specific locations where the earth's energy was believed to be particularly strong. Stone circles, like those found at Avebury and Stonehenge, were often placed at sacred sites, where the land was thought to be imbued with spiritual significance. The relationship between the earth and the heavens is a recurring theme in megalithic architecture. These ancient structures were designed not only to align with the movements of celestial bodies, but also to reflect the belief that the earth itself was a sacred space, a place where the forces of nature converged and where humans could access divine power. By building these monuments in harmony with the natural world, ancient peoples believed they could ensure the fertility of the land, the prosperity of their crops, and the success of their communities. These sites were not just physical locations. They were spiritual hubs, places where the boundary between the human world and the divine was thought to be permeable, where the forces of nature could be channeled and controlled. In this sense, the construction of megalithic structures was an act of cosmic synchronization. The ancient builders of these monuments understood that their lives were intricately connected to the larger forces of nature, and they sought to align their communities, their cultures, and their very existence with the rhythms of the cosmos. The construction of these monumental sites was a way to ensure that they were in harmony with the natural order, that they could tap into the divine forces that govern the universe, and that they could create a lasting legacy that would connect their civilization with the stars, the sun, and the earth for generations to come. But the true power of these megalithic structures lies not just in their ability to align with the natural world, but in their ability to endure. These monuments, built thousands of years ago, continue to stand as testaments to the ingenuity, spirituality, and cosmic vision of the people who constructed them. They have withstood the test of time, enduring centuries of weather, war, and decay, and continue to inspire awe and wonder in those who visit them. These megaliths are not just relics of the past. They are living symbols of a time when human beings saw themselves as part of a much larger, interconnected universe, and sought to create structures that would allow them to participate in the cosmic order. In the end, the megalithic structures of the ancient world represent more than just physical monuments. They are the legacy of a civilization's attempt to understand its place in the universe, to align itself with the forces of nature, and to build a connection between the earthly realm and the divine. The builders of these monumental sites understood that the cosmos was not a distant, unreachable realm. It was a living, breathing part of their everyday existence. And by building these structures, they sought to bring the deeper we delve into the mysteries surrounding the ancient megalithic structures, the more we begin to realize that their true purpose might have been far more intricate and profound than mere observatories or burial sites. These structures, whether pyramids, stone circles, or colossal temples, were not isolated in their design or construction. They were an integral part of a broader system that involved social, political, and religious practices that were as advanced as they were mysterious. While the alignment with celestial events like solstices, equinoxes, and lunar cycles was undeniably important, there was a deeper, perhaps more esoteric purpose at play. It is the complex and interwoven relationship between the spiritual, physical, and political forces of these ancient societies that truly gives us insight into why such colossal structures were built and the impact they had on the civilization's identity and power. One of the most striking aspects of these megalithic structures is the undeniable role they played in reinforcing social hierarchies and the authority of the ruling class. In ancient Egypt, for instance, the construction of the pyramids was not only an expression of religious devotion, but also an assertion of the pharaoh's divine right to rule. The act of constructing such monumental structures required immense resources, labor, and organization, which only a ruler with considerable power could command. The pyramids were not merely tombs for the dead. They were symbols of the eternal reign of the pharaoh, designed to ensure that his soul would ascend to the afterlife and join the gods. The process of building the pyramid itself became a statement of the pharaoh's supremacy, and the sheer scale of the construction demonstrated his ability to command both the natural world and the people under his rule. Similarly, the construction of the ziggurats in Mesopotamia, particularly those in Sumer and Babylon, served to consolidate the power of the king or high priest. These enormous step pyramids were not just religious temples. They were also potent symbols of divine authority. In Mesopotamian society, the king was seen as the earthly representative of the gods, and his power was validated through grand architectural projects like the ziggurats. The construction of these monumental structures was often tied to the king's legitimacy, reinforcing his claim to the throne and his divine mandate. Ziggurats were designed to serve as bridges between the earth and the heavens, providing a physical space where kings could commune with the gods and ensure the prosperity of their people. In many cases, the political and religious power of the ruling class was also closely linked to the rituals and ceremonies that took place within these megalithic structures. Stonehenge, for example, is thought to have been the site of seasonal and solar rituals. The alignment of the stones with the sun's movements suggests that the people who built it understood the significance of the solstices and equinoxes, not just for agricultural reasons, but as part of a broader spiritual framework. These rituals were integral to the identity of the society, marking the passing of time and reinforcing the social and political order. The elite class, likely the priesthood or the chieftains, would have been responsible for conducting these ceremonies, reinforcing their control over the community and their direct connection to the divine forces they believed governed the world. In the Americas, the Mayans constructed monumental pyramids and temples that were intricately linked to their cosmological views and their political system. The Mayans were exceptional astronomers, and their pyramids, such as the ones at Chichen Itza, were carefully aligned with celestial events. These pyramids were not just places of worship. They were tools for reinforcing the power of the rulers. By aligning the structures with the movements of the stars and planets, the Mayan kings could demonstrate their knowledge of the cosmos and their ability to control and predict these celestial events. In this way, the rulers solidified their claim to power by showing that their authority was granted by the gods and the heavens themselves. The power of these ancient rulers was not just based on their ability to command labor or resources. It was also rooted in their perceived connection to the divine. In cultures across the world, the ruling class was often seen as divinely ordained, chosen by the gods to lead and protect their people. The construction of megalithic monuments played a crucial role in asserting and legitimizing this divine connection. The very act of building these monumental structures required an understanding of the natural world, including astronomy, geometry, and engineering, which in itself elevated the ruler's status. The ability to command such knowledge and organize a large workforce was itself a symbol of divine favor and power. Beyond the political and religious dimensions, the megaliths also played a significant role in shaping the cultural identity of these ancient societies. The construction of these massive stone monuments was not just a display of power. It was a way of connecting the community to something larger than themselves. The act of building a megalithic structure was a communal effort, often involving the labor of entire villages or regions. The people who participated in the construction of these monuments were not just passive laborers. They were active participants in a shared cultural project, bound together by the belief that they were contributing to something greater than themselves. The act of building these monuments was, in many ways, a form of collective identity, a way of uniting people around a common purpose and a shared set of beliefs. Take, for instance, the construction of the Great Wall of China, which, although not a megalithic structure in the traditional sense, serves as an example of how monumental architecture can unify a society around a common goal. The Great Wall was built to protect the Chinese Empire from external threats, and the construction of such a massive project was a testament to the unity and strength of the Chinese people. Similarly, the building of megalithic structures like Stonehenge and the pyramids was a way of unifying people around a common cultural and religious identity. The stones themselves were imbued with spiritual significance, and the act of raising them was a way of binding the community together in a shared experience of sacred creation. In the case of Stonehenge, the placement and arrangement of the stones were deeply symbolic. The circular arrangement of the stones, combined with the precise alignment with the sun's movements, created a sense of harmony between the natural and the divine. The structure itself was not just a place of worship. It was a cosmic symbol, a place where the forces of nature and the divine could be brought into alignment. The people who constructed Stonehenge believed that by creating this alignment, they could harness the power of the sun, ensuring the fertility of the land and the prosperity of the community. The stones themselves became a physical manifestation of the community's connection to the cosmos, and the act of gathering together to raise the stones was a ritual that reinforced the social and spiritual bonds between the people. The very construction of these monumental structures also had a profound impact on the technological development of ancient societies. The ability to move and place massive stones with such precision required advanced knowledge of engineering and mathematics, and these skills were often passed down through generations. The construction of megalithic sites like the pyramids of Egypt, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia, or the megalithic temples of Malta provided opportunities for technological innovation and the advancement of knowledge. These sites were not just physical structures. They were laboratories for testing the limits of engineering and construction, and their continued existence speaks to the ingenuity of the cultures that created them. The role of these megalithic structures in shaping the development of ancient civilizations cannot be overstated. They were not only symbols of political and religious power but also driving forces in the advancement of knowledge and technology. The construction of these monuments required a level of organization, resources, and intellectual rigor that was unparalleled in the ancient world. These structures were not just built to serve immediate practical needs. They were designed to endure, to stand the test of time and continue to inspire awe and reverence long after their construction. Ultimately, the megalithic structures of the ancient world serve as powerful reminders of the ability of human beings to shape the world around them. They represent the intersection of politics, religion, and technology, and they offer us a glimpse into the minds of the people who built them. These structures were not simply the products of their time. They were the culmination of centuries of cultural evolution, and they continue to stand as monuments to the human drive to understand and influence the cosmos. As we reflect on the legacy of these ancient monuments, we are reminded of their timeless relevance. These megalithic structures, built long ago, continue to captivate our imaginations and inspire a sense of wonder. They are more than just relics of the past. They are living symbols of human creativity, ambition, and spiritual longing. Through them, we catch a glimpse of a world in which the boundaries between the earthly and the divine were not so clearly defined, where the cosmos was something to be understood, revered, and engaged with. And in their presence, we are reminded that, even in the face of time's relentless march, the power of human ingenuity and belief remains eternal. As we continue to peel back the layers of ancient megalithic structures, a fascinating aspect emerges. These monumental creations were not just about celestial alignments, divine power, or political dominance. There is an unmistakable sense that these structures were built for more than just the rulers and their immediate circles. The purpose behind these megaliths, while often connected to religion, is also deeply rooted in the spiritual lives and collective psyche of entire communities. These monuments were as much about the community as they were about the powerful elites who commanded their construction. For the people, these sites served as profound symbols of unity, identity, and connection to the forces of the universe. In many ancient cultures, the act of constructing a megalithic site was something that involved entire communities. The construction of monumental stone structures like Stonehenge or the Great Pyramids was not only a task for skilled laborers, priests, and the elite but was also a communal effort. The people who built these monuments were often organized into massive workforces, where every person, regardless of social status, played a part in creating something far larger than their individual lives. The act of coming together to build these massive structures created a sense of shared purpose, binding the community not just to the task at hand, but to the larger cosmic order. This sense of collective unity can be seen in the construction process itself. The transportation and placement of giant stones, many weighing several tons, would have required not only significant engineering skill, but also a high degree of social cooperation. The workers would have needed to collaborate in ways that transcend simple labor. The very act of moving these stones, using ropes, sledges, and sheer human force, would have been seen as an offering to the gods, a ritual that involved the community's participation. The stones were not just being moved physically. They were being moved spiritually, each stone a sacred entity, each movement a sacred act. The unity required to complete these monumental tasks would have bonded the community in a shared belief that their labor was for the greater good, contributing to the spiritual and cultural fabric of their society. This collective effort also had profound psychological and spiritual effects on the people who participated in the construction of these monuments. The experience of working together on such an ambitious and sacred project would have created a sense of transcendence. The stones, heavy and unyielding, would have been seen not just as physical objects but as vessels of cosmic energy. When placed in their final positions, these stones were thought to tap into celestial forces, aligning humanity with the universe's grand design. For the laborers, the act of placing each stone would have been seen as an offering, an act of worship that elevated them beyond the mundane tasks of everyday life. They weren't just stacking rocks. They were creating something eternal, something that would connect the earthly realm with the divine, ensuring the prosperity and survival of their people. Megalithic structures, particularly those built in alignment with astronomical phenomena, were central to the spiritual lives of ancient societies. They were far more than just places of worship. They were symbols of the deep understanding ancient people had about the cosmos and their place within it. Take, for example, the large stone circles scattered across Europe, such as the ones at Avebury or Ring of Brodger. These sites were more than just astronomical observatories. They were spiritual gathering places where people could come together to connect with the cosmic forces that shaped their world. The very fact that these structures were often built with such careful consideration of the celestial bodies shows that the people who constructed them viewed the cosmos as something that was intimately connected with their own existence. The cycles of the moon, the path of the sun, and the positions of the stars were not distant phenomena. They were forces that directly impacted their lives and well-being. The very act of constructing these monumental sites was symbolic of humanity's need to control and understand the forces of nature. In an age before scientific instruments and precise calculations, ancient societies relied on megalithic structures to map the movements of celestial bodies. But more importantly, these structures were built with the belief that by aligning themselves with these celestial events, the builders could influence the natural world and bring about beneficial outcomes. The stones were not just markers of time and space. They were tools of divine power. When aligned with the sun's rising or the moon's phases, the stones were seen as amplifying the energies of these celestial bodies, bringing protection, fertility, and harmony to the people who revered them. The rituals that took place at these sites were not merely symbolic. They were believed to have real-world effects, creating an unbreakable connection between the physical and spiritual worlds. The people who built these megalithic structures saw themselves as active participants in a larger cosmic drama. They believed that they were part of a grand design, where their actions, whether through labor, ritual, or prayer, had a direct impact on the forces that governed their world. This belief in human agency in the face of vast cosmic forces is evident in the construction of monuments like the Great Pyramid of Giza. The pyramid was not simply a tomb for the pharaoh. It was a cosmic gateway, a bridge between the earthly realm and the divine. Its alignment with the stars, particularly the constellation of Orion, speaks to the belief that the pharaoh would ascend to the heavens after death, joining the gods in eternal life. The pyramid's construction was not only a reflection of the pharaoh's power, but also a profound spiritual act. It represented humanity's desire to transcend the mortal world and become one with the divine, to partake in the eternal cycle of the cosmos. The concept of cosmic cycles is central to understanding why these monumental structures were so important to ancient people. The cycles of the sun, moon, and stars were seen as mirrors of the cycles of life and death. The rising and setting of the sun was not merely an observable event. It was a symbol of life's eternal cycle, birth, death, and rebirth. The same could be said for the moon, with its waxing and waning phases representing the passage of time and the constant process of renewal. The people who built megalithic structures understood these cycles deeply and constructed their monuments to honor them. Each stone placed was a tribute to the natural rhythms of the universe, a physical manifestation of humanity's place within the greater order. The idea that these structures served a purpose beyond the physical, something that could connect the people to the divine, was not limited to just one region or culture. The Egyptians, for instance, built their pyramids not only to honor their pharaohs, but to provide a pathway for their souls to ascend to the stars, where they would join the gods in the afterlife. Similarly, the Mayans, with their precise understanding of the stars and planets, built their pyramids and temples with an intimate connection to the heavens. For the Mayans, the construction of their megalithic structures was an act of cosmic alignment. By placing their temples and pyramids in direct line with celestial bodies, they believed they could influence the forces of the universe and ensure prosperity, fertility, and divine favor for their people. The cultural and spiritual importance of these sites extended beyond just the ruling class or the priests who conducted rituals. These monumental structures were integral to the identity of the entire community. They were communal spaces where the people could come together to honor the cosmos, to celebrate their existence, and to reaffirm their connection to the divine. For the laborers, the construction process itself was a form of worship, and the completed site became a place of pilgrimage, where people could go to seek blessings and spiritual fulfillment. These sites were not just about the rulers, they were about everyone. They were symbols of unity, of shared belief, and of collective identity. The construction of these monumental sites would have had a profound psychological effect on the people. The sheer scale of the labor involved in moving massive stones, the meticulous planning required to align them with celestial events, and the belief that these structures held divine power would have instilled a sense of awe and reverence. For the people, the act of participating in such a monumental task would have brought them closer to the gods. The sense of shared purpose and spiritual involvement would have elevated the community to a higher level of consciousness. The stones themselves, once erected, were not merely markers of time. They were sacred beings, vessels of divine energy, capable of bringing protection and favor to those who revered them. These megalithic structures were also markers of continuity, a way of linking the present to the past and ensuring that future generations would be able to connect with their ancestors. The alignment of the stones with the celestial bodies was not just about the present moment. It was about perpetuating a cosmic order that would endure long after the builders had passed. The stones were symbols of eternity, standing firm and unyielding against the passage of time. By building these structures, the people sought to leave a lasting legacy, ensuring that their connection to the cosmos, and to their ancestors, would be preserved for all time. As we explore these ancient megalithic monuments, it becomes clear that their significance was far greater than we may initially assume. These structures were not just about the rulers or the priests. They were about the people as a whole. They were symbols of unity, belief, and spiritual engagement with the forces that governed the universe. The act of building these monuments was a collective endeavor, binding the people together in a shared sense of purpose and faith. These structures were not merely physical buildings. They were sacred portals, places where humanity could connect with the divine and participate in the cosmic cycle. And in this way, they represent the ultimate expression of human aspiration, to transcend the mortal world and achieve communion with the cosmos. As we continue our exploration of the ancient megalithic structures that dot the landscape of human history, it becomes increasingly clear that these monumental constructions were not merely the products of their time. They were deliberate statements of intent, each stone, each alignment, each structure imbued with layers of meaning far deeper than we can readily comprehend. The more we investigate, the more it becomes apparent that these structures, though built in various corners of the world, share striking similarities that suggest a common thread of thought, belief, and spiritual understanding among diverse cultures. From the towering pyramids of Egypt to the stone circles of Britain, and the ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the megalithic temples of Malta, each of these monuments seems to convey a profound message about humanity's relationship with the cosmos and the divine. Yet, this message remains elusive, a riddle wrapped in stone that defies easy answers. One of the most puzzling aspects of these megalithic structures is their construction. Not only were these monuments built with a level of precision and knowledge that seems almost impossible for the era in which they were created, but they also embody a profound understanding of geometry, astronomy, and physics that we would expect only from a society with advanced technology. How did ancient civilizations, with their rudimentary tools and methods, manage to build such grandiose structures with such exactitude? How did they align their monuments with the stars, the sun, and the moon in ways that we are still trying to fully understand today? And, perhaps most intriguingly, why did they go to such lengths to create these seemingly impossible structures in the first place? While we cannot know for sure what motivated these ancient builders, one compelling theory is that these megaliths were constructed to serve as both literal and symbolic representations of the connection between the heavens and the earth. The ancient peoples who built these structures likely viewed the cosmos as a sacred realm that governed not only the movements of the stars and planets, but also the natural rhythms of life on Earth. By aligning their monuments with celestial events such as the solstices, equinoxes, and lunar phases, these ancient societies were essentially creating physical portals that allowed them to access the divine forces they believed controlled the universe. These monumental structures were, in a sense, a form of communication with the cosmos, a way to harness the power of the heavens to influence life on Earth. This belief in the power of celestial alignment is perhaps most evident in the construction of the Great Pyramids of Egypt. The precision with which these pyramids were constructed is awe-inspiring, especially when one considers the limited tools available to the ancient Egyptians. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, is aligned so precisely with the cardinal directions that it is nearly impossible to imagine how such an achievement was made without the use of advanced technology. The alignment of the pyramid with the stars, particularly the constellation of Orion, is another source of mystery. Orion was associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife, and the pyramid's alignment with this constellation suggests that the Egyptians believed the pyramid was not just a tomb but a cosmic gateway, a place where the pharaoh's soul could ascend to the heavens and join the gods in eternal life. The idea that these ancient megalithic structures were built to facilitate communication between the earthly and divine realms is also supported by the construction of other monumental structures, such as the ziggurats of Mesopotamia. These towering step pyramids were designed to serve as temples to the gods, but they were also places where the king, as the representative of the gods on earth, could commune with the divine. The ziggurats were built in alignment with the stars and planets, reflecting the belief that the movements of celestial bodies influenced the fate of the kingdom. The highest point of the ziggurat, where the temple was located, was considered the most sacred space, where the gods could descend to earth and where the king could communicate with them. The ziggurat, like the pyramid, was a bridge between the earthly and the divine, a structure designed to facilitate divine communication and ensure the prosperity of the people. Similar beliefs can be found in the construction of Stonehenge, perhaps one of the most famous megalithic sites in the world. The alignment of the stones at Stonehenge with the sun's movements during the solstices suggests that the site was built not only as a place of worship but also as a means of aligning the community with the cosmic rhythms of the earth. The summer and winter solstices, in particular, marked key moments in the agricultural calendar, and the alignment of Stonehenge with these celestial events suggests that the people who built it believed that, by aligning themselves with the sun cycle, they could ensure a successful harvest and the continued prosperity of their community. Like the pyramids and ziggurats, Stonehenge was a symbolic representation of the connection between the heavens and the earth, a place where the forces of nature and the divine could be harnessed for the benefit of the people. The fact that these structures were built in alignment with celestial events is not just a testament to the advanced knowledge of the ancient peoples who built them, but also to their deep spiritual understanding. The alignment of the megaliths with the stars, the sun, and the moon was not simply an act of observation, it was an act of reverence, an acknowledgement that the celestial bodies were divine forces that held sway over life on earth. By aligning their monuments with these celestial bodies, the ancient builders were essentially making a pact with the heavens, a promise that they would honor the cosmic order in return for the blessings of the gods. However, as we delve deeper into the purpose of these megalithic structures, it becomes clear that they were not just about celestial alignment or religious devotion. They also served as symbols of power, authority, and control. The construction of these massive structures required immense resources, both in terms of labor and materials, and their sheer size and complexity would have demonstrated the authority of the rulers who commanded their construction. The pharaohs of Egypt, for example, were not just kings. They were seen as gods on earth, and the pyramids were not only tombs for the dead but also monuments to their divine status. Similarly, the kings of Mesopotamia, whose authority was legitimized by their connection to the gods, used the ziggurats as symbols of their power, demonstrating their ability to control the forces of nature and communicate with the divine. The construction of these megalithic structures also had a profound effect on the social dynamics of the societies that built them. The labor required to construct these monumental sites would have been a massive undertaking, involving the mobilization of large numbers of workers. These workers were not just slaves or laborers. They were part of a larger religious and social structure that required their participation in these sacred projects. The construction process itself would have served as a form of social cohesion, uniting people from different walks of life in a common purpose. The act of building a megalithic structure was a communal effort, and the sense of collective achievement would have created a strong bond between the people and their rulers, as well as between the people and the divine forces they worshipped. The legacy of these megalithic structures is not just found in the stones themselves, but in the way they shaped the worldview of the ancient societies that built them. These monuments were not just physical structures. They were reflections of the people's understanding of the cosmos and their place within it. By aligning their monuments with the movements of celestial bodies, the ancient builders were asserting their belief in the interconnectedness of all things, in the idea that the forces of the heavens were intimately tied to the affairs of the earth. The construction of these monumental structures was a way for these ancient cultures to affirm their belief in the divine, to create a physical manifestation of their faith, and to ensure that they would be able to harness the power of the cosmos for the benefit of their people. In the present day, these ancient megalithic structures continue to awe and inspire us. Their scale, precision, and alignment with the natural world serve as a reminder of the advanced knowledge and spiritual understanding of the cultures that built them. These monuments were not just designed to be impressive. They were designed to be eternal, to stand the test of time and continue to serve as symbols of humanity's connection to the cosmos. The fact that these structures have survived for thousands of years, through wars, natural disasters, and the ravages of time, speaks to their enduring power and significance. In many ways, the megaliths we see today are not just relics of the past. They are living symbols of humanity's quest to understand its place in the universe. As we gaze upon these monumental structures, we are reminded of the profound spiritual and intellectual achievements of the ancient peoples who created them. These megalithic sites continue to inspire us, not only because of their physical grandeur but because they represent humanity's desire to connect with the divine, to understand the mysteries of the cosmos, and to leave a lasting legacy that will endure long after we are gone. The true purpose of these megalithic structures may never be fully understood, but their lasting impact on the world is undeniable. They serve as a testament to the ingenuity, spiritual depth, and cultural significance of the civilizations that built them, and they continue to captivate our imagination, reminding us that even in the most ancient of times, humanity was striving to unlock the mysteries of the universe and to find its place within the great cosmic order. These structures stand as silent sentinels, bearing witness to the enduring human quest for knowledge, meaning, and connection with the divine. As we continue to probe the enigmatic world of ancient megalithic structures, it becomes evident that the story they tell is not just one of celestial alignments, grand engineering feats, or religious devotion. Beneath the surface, a much deeper and more mysterious narrative begins to unfold, one that intertwines the destinies of entire civilizations with the forces of nature, the cosmos, and the unknown. These colossal monuments, built with an intricacy and precision that continue to baffle modern scientists, were far more than mere structures. They were the ultimate expression of humanity's search for meaning, its desire to comprehend the mysteries of existence, and its attempt to establish a permanent connection with the divine and the cosmos. The true purpose behind these ancient megaliths is a question that continues to haunt historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts alike. Were they designed solely for religious or astronomical purposes, or did they serve as something far more complex, an attempt to harness or control the very forces of nature itself? In exploring these monuments, it becomes clear that they were often built not just by the rulers or the elite but by entire communities that believed deeply in their significance. The labor involved in constructing these structures was monumental, not just in terms of physical effort but in terms of social and spiritual commitment. Communities came together, driven by a collective vision, to create these timeless monuments. Whether it was the massive pyramids of Egypt, the towering ziggurats of Mesopotamia, or the intricate stone circles of Britain, these structures demanded an unprecedented level of organization, coordination, and devotion. They were the work of societies that had a profound sense of purpose, a belief that by constructing these sacred places, they were in some way shaping the very fabric of the universe itself. This brings us to the idea that these structures were not only meant to symbolize power, but they were also a form of communication between humanity and the cosmos. Ancient cultures around the world shared a deep, almost mystical understanding of the natural world. Their relationship with the heavens was not one of passive observation but of active engagement. The alignment of megalithic monuments with celestial bodies, whether the sun, the moon, or the stars, wasn't simply an architectural feat. It was an attempt to synchronize human activity with the cosmic rhythms that they believed governed the universe. By aligning their buildings with the sun's path, the moon's cycles, and the stars' movements, these civilizations were creating structures that acted as metaphysical bridges between the earth and the divine. Take, for example, the pyramids of Egypt. The Great Pyramid of Giza is widely regarded as one of the most astonishing architectural achievements in human history. Its construction required not just immense physical labor, but also a profound understanding of geometry, astronomy, and mathematics. The precision with which the pyramid was aligned to the cardinal directions is so exact that it defies easy explanation. The pyramid's design and positioning were not arbitrary. They were deliberate and deeply symbolic. The alignment of the pyramid with the stars, particularly the constellation of Orion, has led many scholars to suggest that the pyramid was built as a kind of cosmic gateway. The Egyptians believed that the pharaoh, upon death, would ascend to the heavens and join the gods. Orion, associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife, was seen as the celestial manifestation of the pharaoh's journey into eternity. The pyramid itself was designed to facilitate this journey, with its precise alignment ensuring that the pharaoh's soul would find its way to the stars, where it could live on forever. In much the same way, the ziggurats of Mesopotamia were built as bridges between the human and divine realms. These towering structures, which served as temples dedicated to various gods, were designed to bring the king closer to the gods. The ziggurats were not just places of worship, they were symbolic representations of the cosmic order. The stepped design of the ziggurat mirrored the hierarchical nature of the cosmos, with the highest point representing the abode of the gods. The king, as the earthly representative of the divine, would ascend the ziggurat to commune with the gods, seeking their favor and guidance. The very construction of these monumental structures was an act of divine symbolism, asserting the king's ability to control the forces of nature and communicate directly with the gods. While these monumental structures undoubtedly had political and religious significance, they were also deeply entwined with the agricultural and social rhythms of the people who built them. Many megalithic sites were aligned with solar and lunar events, such as the equinoxes and solstices, which held great importance in agricultural societies. In these societies, the cycles of the sun and moon governed not only religious rituals but also the timing of planting and harvesting crops. The alignment of megalithic structures with these celestial events may have served as a reminder to the people of their connection to the natural world, ensuring that they stayed in harmony with the forces that sustained them. By marking the changing of the seasons with monumental structures, these societies could ensure the prosperity of their people, aligning their agricultural practices with the cycles of nature. In the case of Stonehenge, the stones are aligned with the solstices and the lunar cycles, suggesting that the site was not just a place of worship, but also an observatory for tracking the passage of time. The importance of timekeeping in ancient agricultural societies cannot be overstated. The timing of planting and harvesting was critical to survival, and the alignment of Stonehenge with the sun's path provided a way for the people to track the seasons and ensure the success of their crops. The site may have also served as a gathering place for rituals that were meant to ensure the fertility of the land and the health of the community. The idea that these megalithic structures were used to mark time and connect humanity to the rhythms of nature is a recurring theme throughout history, from the sacred groves of the Celts to the sun temples of the Inca. However, the idea that these megaliths were merely used to mark celestial events or regulate agricultural practices is too simplistic. There is a deeper, more mysterious layer to these structures that cannot be ignored. Throughout history, many megalithic sites have been associated with spiritual experiences that transcend the physical realm. People who built and worshipped at these sites believed that they were not only interacting with the forces of nature but also engaging with supernatural powers. The stones themselves were seen as living entities, imbued with spiritual energy. The act of building these monuments was not just a physical act of construction but a ritual act that brought the builders closer to the divine. The power of the megaliths was believed to reside not just in their physical size and alignment but in their very materiality. Stone, in many ancient cultures, was seen as a sacred substance. It was durable, eternal, and capable of carrying the energies of the cosmos. The idea that the stones could channel or hold cosmic power is a central belief in many megalithic traditions. The stones themselves were not inert. They were vessels for divine energy, and their positioning within the landscape was seen as a way of tapping into the greater forces that governed the universe. This belief in the spiritual power of the stones is especially evident in cultures like the Celts, who placed great importance on sacred stones and their ability to channel energy. The Celts believed that certain locations, often marked by standing stones or stone circles, were imbued with special powers, capable of healing or protecting those who came into contact with them. The standing stones at sites like Avebury or Carnac were thought to be portals to other worlds, places where the barriers between the human and divine realms were thin. Pilgrims would travel to these sites to seek spiritual enlightenment, healing, or divine guidance, believing that the stones themselves could mediate between the earthly and spiritual worlds. In the modern era, many of these ancient megalithic sites continue to attract visitors who seek to experience their mysterious energy firsthand. People from all over the world travel to sites like Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, or the pyramids of Egypt, not just to admire their architectural grandeur, but to connect with the spiritual power that these places continue to emanate. Despite the centuries that have passed since they were first constructed, the power of these megaliths remains undeniable. They are not just relics of the past. They are living symbols of humanity's ongoing quest for meaning, connection, and transcendence. Ultimately, the true purpose of these megalithic structures may never be fully understood. What is clear, however, is that they represent an extraordinary human achievement, a testament to the ingenuity, faith, and spiritual longing of the people who created them. These structures were not built merely to mark time or to celebrate rulers. They were designed to bring humanity closer to the divine, to harness the power of the cosmos, and to create a lasting connection with the forces that govern the universe. As we look upon these ancient monuments, we are reminded of the timeless human desire to understand the mysteries of existence and to find our place within the greater cosmic order. These megalithic structures, silent and enduring, continue to stand as sentinels of our shared human heritage, guiding us toward the ultimate truth that has always eluded us: that we are but a small part of a vast, interconnected cosmos, and that our actions, our beliefs, and our creations are all part of something far greater than ourselves. As we delve further into the world of ancient megalithic structures, we begin to uncover a truth that is often overlooked. The sheer scale of these constructions suggests a deeper, far more complex narrative than we might initially assume. It is not simply the architectural or astronomical precision of these structures that demands our attention, but their profound spiritual significance. Each stone, each carefully placed monolith, was more than just a piece of rock. It was a symbol of power, identity, and belief. The people who built these monuments were not merely interested in creating massive structures. They were engaging in acts of sacred creation, crafting physical representations of the divine that would stand the test of time. This concept of megalithic constructions as sacred acts of creation links these sites to the broader human experience of attempting to transcend mortality and touch something eternal, something beyond the material world.